The world is veiled in darkness. The wind stops, the sea is wild, and the earth begins to rot. The people wait, their only hope a prophecy. When the world is in darkness, 4 warriors will come. After a long journey, 4 young warriors arrive, each holding an orb. So begins the story of Final Fantasy, one of the most epic role-playing games on the NES. We now know that this was just the beginning of one of the most prolific RPG franchises of all time, with so many sequels and spin-offs it's hard to keep track of them all. Heck, Final Fantasy XIII had 2 sequels of its own. But when this game was developed all the way back in the mid-1980s, all of that success was far away. Squaresoft, a company that would become synonymous with role-playing games, had yet to find its niche. Square was founded in September of 1983 by businessman Masafumi Miyamoto, no relation to Shigeru Miyamoto from Nintendo. Masafumi Miyamoto had the radical idea to have graphic designers, writers, and programmers work together on collaborative projects. While Square released a few adventure games on PC, their games for the NES were certainly not the type of games Square would become known for. King's Knight sounds like an RPG, but it's actually a shooter. They also released the 3D Battles of World Runner and Rad Racer, 2 games that very ambitiously try to create a 3D experience on the NES hardware. Square's lead designer, Hironobu Sakaguchi, didn't like the games they were making very much. He wanted to make an RPG like Ultima or Wizardry, but couldn't get Miyamoto to greenlight his idea. An RPG would take a lot of resources to create, and Miyamoto didn't think the game would be very marketable. Things changed with the release of Dragon Quest in 1986. The game took Japan by storm, and there was now clear proof that an RPG could be a hit. Sakaguchi got the go-ahead, and he formed a small group within Square that would be known as the A-Team, a title that truly befits them. Designer Koichi Ishii was Sakaguchi's right-hand man. He would go on to create the Seiken Densetsu series, which includes the popular game Secret of Mana for the Super Nintendo. Akitoshi Kawazu had worked with Sakaguchi on Rad Racer and designed the battle system for Final Fantasy. He would go on to create a Game Boy series called Saga, which was released in North America as the Final Fantasy Legend. It would be Square's first game to sell 1 million copies. The music was composed by Nobuo Uematsu, an incredible self-taught musician. While most of the team hadn't made many games yet, Uematsu was already an old pro, having composed music for at least a dozen other games. He would continue creating the music for almost every numbered Final Fantasy game. Artist Yoshitaka Amano was one of the last members to join the team, and at first Sakaguchi didn't want to hire him. Fortunately, he changed his mind after designer Koichi Ishii showed Sakaguchi examples of Amano's work. His beautiful watercolor paintings created an art style for the game that was both whimsical and iconic. Final Fantasy brought graphics into the game in a way that was unprecedented. Instead of a first-person view like in Dragon Warrior, Final Fantasy shows your characters on the right side of the screen. It may not seem like a big deal today, but seeing animations depicting the different weapons and spells was a huge upgrade from anything we had seen before. Sakaguchi claims that the team always wanted an alliterative title that could be shortened to FF. The working title was Fighting Fantasy, but there was a trademark issue with that name. They ended up settling on the title Final Fantasy, partly because if the game was a failure, it would likely be the final game Square or Sakaguchi ever made. But there wouldn't be anything final about this franchise, and when the game released in Japan in 1987, it was a huge success, selling over 500,000 copies. Thanks to a stellar translation from Nintendo of America, and tons of promotion in their Nintendo Power magazine, it's sold fairly well in the US too. The game has been remade several times, but the original version is still appreciated by fans and critics alike. When IGN released their list of the top 100 NES games of all time, they ranked Final Fantasy at number 11. Modern players that attempt this game will still have to deal with all of the challenges the NES is notorious for. You may think everything is going well until a savage group of enemies ambushes your party and instantly wipes you out. Unlike Dragon Warrior, in this game you don't get to keep any experience points or items that you found if you die, so if you get a game over in Final Fantasy, I hope it hasn't been a long time since you saved. But what if I told you secret ways to gain experience points quickly so we won't have to spend much time grinding at all? What if I told you where to find every hidden treasure so you'll always have the best items and equipment? And what if I explained how this game actually works so you'll always understand how to make the best moves? Well, on today's episode of You Can Beat Video Games, we'll learn all of that and more. If you're new to the channel, we're doing deep dives on retro video games and giving you the professional strategies that can be used by the casual gamer. Please make sure to subscribe and check out youcanbeatvideogames.com for episode lists, news, and official You Can Beat Video Games merchandise. Let's get started. Alright, Final Fantasy. As we begin a new game, it's time to build our party. A Final Fantasy party has 4 slots, and with 6 different character classes, there are 126 unique party combinations. Some of them are obviously terrible. So how do we build the best team? The key is that we have 4 important roles to fill: the tank, the secondary melee attacker, the healer, and the black magic specialist. The fighter serves the role of the tank and is arguably the most important member of our party. Whether we like it or not, enemies are going to attack us and deal damage. Because the fighter can equip the game's best armor, he's going to be able to soak up a lot of those attacks so our weaker party members can survive. He also has an incredibly strong melee attack, and after being promoted to a knight later in the game, he'll even be able to use limited white magic. The best gear in the game is unique, so while you could have multiple fighters on the team, a second fighter will always be equipped with weaker equipment, making multiples have diminished returns. It's certainly possible to beat the game without a fighter, but not having one is a serious handicap. Definitely include one of these guys on your team. The black belt is our choice for the secondary melee attacker role. The black belt starts out a bit weak, but quickly transforms into one of the most powerful attackers. The best part is that a black belt requires almost no investment from you. This guy hits harder unarmed than he does with weapons, and can get away without wearing any armor, although that's not recommended. Being able to wear fewer pieces of armor will be important in the late game though, when inventory space is at a premium. Not spending money on this guy will free up your budget for expensive weapons, armor, and the absurdly priced high-level magic spells. You definitely won't regret having a black belt on your team. The third member of the party fills the role of the healer. In most RPGs, a good healer is essential, but in this game, white magic is surprisingly weak. The magic system in this game doesn't use magic points in the traditional sense. In Final Fantasy, you get a limited number of castings from each spell level, a system much more similar to Dungeons & Dragons than it is to Dragon Warrior. The best way to keep the party healthy is to use healing potions between battles. There are also no Phoenix Downs in this game, so life magic is the only way to revive slain party members when you're away from town. The white mage is only good in certain situations. She is especially good when facing an army of undead enemies in the early game, but otherwise, the red mage is the superior option. This guy not only can use most white magic, but he can also cast even better black magic. If that wasn't enough, he can also equip decent weapons and armor, making him a melee threat as well. He has all of that plus an outfit that says, "I might manage prostitutes," so you won't be disappointed selecting a red mage instead of a white one. The last member of our party is the black mage. If white magic is underwhelming in this game, black magic is the complete opposite. It's extremely overpowered. Melee attacks have a chance to miss, but damaging spells always deal some damage, even if it is reduced by the enemy's resistances. You're also going to be regularly faced with battles against hordes of enemies. Your melee attackers can only hit one enemy per round, but black magic can hit them all. If magic is no good, black mages can cast Fast, the best support spell in the game, which will multiply the amount of damage your best attacker can deal. The black mage is fragile, so you might prefer to have a second red mage, but the black mage will learn advanced magic earlier, and a red mage can never cast Nuke, the game's most powerful spell. You may notice that we didn't choose a thief. The thief is the worst class in the game, and it's really not close. In other Final Fantasy games, thieves can steal items from enemies, and sometimes you'll even get awesome unique equipment this way. In this game, however, they don't do that. Thieves can't use very good weapons and armor, so they won't be very impressive in combat. Thieves are extra lucky when running away, and having a thief in the top or second party position may even help the entire party improve their odds of escaping. But unless you're challenging yourself to finish the game at the lowest possible level, running away is not how we deal with our problems in Final Fantasy. The thief eventually gets promoted to the ninja, which is great. This is a melee class that can even cast some black magic, but as good as the ninja is, it's not worth suffering with the thief. If this is your first time playing Final Fantasy, you should definitely avoid this guy. With our party assembled, it's time for Chapter 1, The King's Quest. No matter how many times we begin this quest, it always starts right here. Conaria, the Dream City. The 4 light warriors gather together, and it's time to get equipped. Unless we want to hang out with Arlen the Dancer, maybe we can get her number for later? In any case, we have 400 gold to spend, so we want to buy a small dagger for the black mage, and a rapier for our fighter, and another one for the red mage. The black belt does not get a weapon. We're on a tight budget here, and the only reason why we let him join the team was he brought 100 gold like everybody else did, and agreed that he got nothing. Over here in the armor store, we're going to pick up a cloth for our black mage to wear, and then we're going to get chainmail for the fighter and for the red mage. You may be surprised that a magic user like a red mage can wear chainmail, but that's what's awesome about a red mage. He's also a very good melee character. Unlike in other games, this game does not automatically equip any equipment that you buy, so you need to go into the pause menu and make sure to equip everything that you purchased, or it will simply do nothing. And then we're going to take a look at our stats here at the beginning of the game. It'll be interesting to compare those to the ones at the end. You see that our fighter deals 19 damage right now, which is awesome, and our black belt only can deal 2, which is sad. Vito here can do 14, which seems quite awesome for a magic user, and Game can only deal 6. That's not why we have him on the team though, he's not a melee type. The people of the town want us to restore the power of the orbs, but first we need to go up here and purchase a bit of magic. We'll grab the cure spell for Vito. He is the healer after all, but it might actually be better to just get him the fire spell. It's up to you. We are definitely going to buy a fire spell for Game. He's a black mage, and there's nothing better than just lighting bad guys on fire. So we're going to purchase that spell first. That guy mentions Lucon the Sage. He's somebody that we'll run into later. And it seems that Lucon has delivered a prophecy that deals with us. So yeah, that's interesting. We're going to make our way around and we can exit the town on the right side, but there is one last guy we didn't talk to, and he mentions the city of Provoca, which is a city that we will be visiting very soon. You don't have to go to the castle here at the beginning of the game, that's optional, but we kind of want to see what's going on. Castle Canaria has a ton of hidden treasure for us to find, but we'll need a magical key before we'll be able to unlock any of it. Up here we can meet with the king, and he does have a quest for us. He wants us to rescue his daughter, Princess Sarah. If we can do that for him, he'll build a bridge for us so that we can cross over into the rest of the world. I guess that people have been crossing this small bit of water with a canoe for generations, but the light warriors are prima donnas, so we need a bridge. Down here we can speak with Queen Jane, who is very distraught over the loss of her daughter, and there's a few other people in the castle we can chat with. This guy has an interesting comment about someone named Garland. Who is Garland? Well, Garland is the boss that kidnapped the princess. We're about to face him very soon. If we come down here on the right side, we can meet up with Princess Sarah's sister, who seems pretty upset, but she'll get to be queen someday if Sarah stays missing, so pretty tough deal there. And with that, we're off to the Temple of Fiends. We can see from the map that the Temple of Fiends is located north of Castle Canaria, so we're gonna head up this way. And as we enter this forest, it's time to face our first battle. Now we got lucky and we get to attack first, but normally the monsters and our party would attack simultaneously, so we would select all of our attacks and then you kind of see how it plays out. But for this battle, we're going to do one round that's just us. You'll notice that the fighter and the red mage can be relied on to take out one of the imps, but the black belt and the black mage right now probably need to work together to be able to take out one of them. So if we work with that strategy, we can have the red mage attack one imp, the fighter attack another one, and then just have the black mage and the black belt attack the same imp. We should be able to take care of this battle no problem. Now we're going to enter a slightly different area, and we're going to move Vito into the second position of the party. The reason we're changing the party order is because Vito, the red mage, has much better armor on right now than our black belt. Beat the black belt is currently buck naked. We moved Beat into the third slot to protect him, and that's because the party order matters. It actually matters a lot. Whenever the enemies attack, 50% of the time, they're going to direct their attack at whoever's in that top slot. So 1 out of every 2 attacks is going to go at you can. Then 25% of the time, they're going to attack the second slot. So 1 in every 4 attacks right now is going to go towards Vito. For the third and fourth slot, the attacks are equally likely at 1 in 8 attacks, so those guys are a lot safer. And for now, that's why we have our red mage in the second slot, who needs to be able to handle some attacks, but not quite as many as the person in the top slot. And now that we've explained that, it's time to actually enter the Temple of Fiends. As soon as we get inside, we want to head over to the left where we can find a decent piece of armor before we face the boss. It looks like we ran into some zombies. Throughout the game, we're going to run into a lot of enemies that look like this but have different colorations. This version is the weakest of those enemies. The other kinds can actually paralyze our party members, which is very, very dangerous. But the zombies don't do that, so these ones are a bit more tame. They are weak against fire, so if you have any available fire magic, you could use it against zombies, but you want to save at least one fire spell for the boss. That'll make him a lot easier to defeat. And over here we found that cap. This is our first helmet. There are several different categories for armor, and your characters can only wear one item from each category. So there's main armor, there's helmets, gauntlets, accessories, that sort of thing. We're going to head back to the middle, that's where the boss is, and he's through those doors right there in the center. And before that, oh no. This is one of the worst possible battles we could have encountered. This pack of wolves is only 9% likely to appear, and we got the maximum number of them. We even got the one gray wolf. We have no chance of beating these guys, we need to run away. Well, we were lucky enough to escape. With only one hit point on the black mage, it's time to try our luck against Garland. In typical first boss fashion, Garland is not that tough to defeat. All you really want to do is use any fire magic that you have available to you, and then just have everybody else use fight. We don't have a lot of techniques available to us at this point, so all we can do is pure offense. So just keep the beatdown going. This guy only has 106 hit points, and your fighter probably can deal 20 to 30 points of damage, so it shouldn't take too long to whittle that down. You'll also notice that Beat, the black belt, often deals 2 attacks. Right now he doesn't deal a lot of damage, but because he's attacking unarmed, he always gets double the number of hits. That's one of the reasons why black belts are so good, especially when they get to higher levels. The black belt isn't very impressive right now, but whenever we get to about level 7 or 8, those extra hits are really going to start adding up. And wow, looks like we only needed one more point of damage to finish off Garland. And with the 130 experience points we get, everybody gets promoted to level 2. Nice. Pretty good way to end the first boss battle. Once Garland's defeated, you don't have to walk all the way back to the castle, you just need to go up and talk to the princess. You can talk to those bats first if you want to. And whenever you talk to her, we'll be instantly warped back to the king. Talking to the king will trigger the building of that bridge that we needed, but don't forget to talk to the princess too. She has a mandatory item for us, the loot, that we won't use until the very end of the game, but we are going to need it. You can come back and get it at any time if you forgot it, but it makes a lot of sense to just pick it up right now. If we head down here, we can talk to Queen Jane, who's very thankful that we rescued Princess Sarah, and maybe we can even check in on the other princess. Let's see how she's doing over in this chamber. Well, it seems that she's happy that her sister's back safe too. She didn't really want to be queen anyway. Before we leave the area though, let's stop back in Canaria Town and spend some of the money that we earned fighting monsters. We can actually go to the armor store and buy some armor for our black belt so that he doesn't have to be naked anymore. The wooden armor is the best armor he can wear from this store, but usually black belts end up wearing wizard armor, which comes in the form of bracelets. But for now, the wooden armor will do. The absorb rate that you get from armor reduces the damage that you take from enemies. Up here we can buy some more magic spells. I'm going to get the fog spell just for variety, but you may actually want to have your red mage learn the fire magic instead. You only can learn 3 spells per level, so you need to pick carefully. It's going to be a lot easier for the black mage, who definitely wants fire and lit. Those are the 2 best black magic spells, but whenever you can also choose white magic spells, it's a little bit tougher. If you have a white mage instead of a red mage, you also want to pick up the harm magic, which can deal damage to all undead enemies. It's very nice for your level 1 spell to be able to hit multiple enemies, but later in the game, you won't encounter as many undead. The red mage can't learn harm, but he can eventually learn fire too, which undead enemies are also weak against, and can be used against any enemy type and not just undead. As we cross the bridge, we see the game's real title screen. Up until this point, we haven't seen anything that says Final Fantasy. Hiro Nakamura once said, "Save the princess, save the world," or something like that. So maybe rescuing Princess Sarah is just the first step on the way to a much larger adventure. And it certainly seems that way, because it's time for Chapter 2, The Sleeping Prince. Now you may be wondering, who is this sleeping prince, and which one of us is going to wake him up with a kiss? Well, we won't meet the prince for a while, but if we head up this way, we can meet someone who will help. We've seen this imp fight several times now, so I'm just going to speed through it, and we just want to head up this way between the mountains. This part is optional, but we will be able to grab some free items up here, and later on in the game, we're not going to be very excited about these items, so now is a great time to pick them up. This place that we're headed to is called Matoya's Cave, and once we get inside there's no enemies. The witch Matoya has animated some brooms to clean the cave for her, which makes me think she's never seen the movie Fantasia. They all say the same thing and they all say it backwards, but they're telling you that if you press B and select at the same time, you can bring up a map of the world. Matoya wants a crystal, and while crystals are very important in the later Final Fantasy games, like all of them except for this one, this will be the only crystal that we need to find in this game. On the left side, we'll also find 2 healing potions and a pure potion, and while these items will be a dime a dozen later, they are very helpful for us right now. And we'll try out that B select, and that's how the map looks. Pretty cool. And as we head away from the cave, there are some dangerous enemies in this area, and wow, this is extremely dangerous. We need to run away from these guys. Not only do they have 72 hit points, but gray wolves are very evasive. This early in the game, our melee attackers are very likely to miss when attacking gray wolves, so we're going to need magic to deal with them. And we don't have a whole lot of magic that we can use right now. We do have a few uses of cure, which is going to keep us above water at the moment. It looks like game needs a shot of it. Only 1 cure magic left though. We're definitely going to need to pick up some heal potions whenever we have enough money. Here's a gray imp, which should be much easier for us to defeat. Does it surprise anybody that imps are in the giant family? You can see that on the left side underneath their picture. If any enemy has a family affiliation, it will appear there. And now we want to head back down to the bottom. This is a little bit safer than cutting across to the right. Down here there's mostly just imps, so we'll hit some imps. And as we wrap up around, there will be a bit more variety to the enemies. We want to cut across this marsh to the right, and okay, we get to attack first, so now could be a good time to try our hand against this pack of wolves. There's only 1 gray wolf, and remember the gray wolf has very high evasion, so we want to use some magic on him. We'll have game cast the new lit magic that we bought on him, although fire magic would probably be just as effective against this guy. He doesn't have any elemental resistances. The great thing about magic in this game is that damage spells always will deal some damage. They can miss. The way that magic works is it does have a chance to hit or miss, but if it misses, that just means it deals less damage. So whenever game casts lit, it has a chance to miss, and I think that one was a miss, but it still dealt 11 damage. Not terrible. Now there are some spells that will deal debuffs, so if something's going to be like hold, which will make an enemy paralyzed, that's all or nothing, so it has a chance to work, but if it fails, it just doesn't work. So that's different from a damage spell. If an enemy has a resistance to the spell, that will make it deal half damage. It'll also make it a lot more likely to miss, so the result is if the enemy has resistance, they'll end up taking 25% of the damage. So if the enemy has a resistance to your spell, you probably should save it for something else. On the other hand, if an enemy has a weakness to an element, then it's much more likely to hit and will also deal 50% more damage. So if you know an enemy has a certain weakness, you definitely would like to try to use those spells on that enemy type. And we should be able to just clean up these last few wolves and reap the benefits of all the experience points. Not bad. That was a very difficult battle. Although we've depleted most of our magic spells and really need to make it to town so we can use the inn. The inn will be the only way that we can refill our magic until we can buy a house item, so that's very important. And I think we're going to have to run away here. We're not going to have a very good chance of defeating the Grey Wolf. But the other reason why the inn is important is staying at the inn is the best way to save the game. We can also get some items like a tent or a cabin, which will let us save the game by using an item. But there's no way to save the game for free in this game unless you find an item like a tent somewhere. So we need to use the inn to save the game, because if you die in Final Fantasy, well, then you have to go back to the last time that you saved. So it's very important that you save frequently. Whenever you use the inn, the game saves automatically, but whenever you use an item like a tent or a cabin or a house, the game will ask you if you want to save. Now, whenever you use an inn, you can tell them no, you don't want to use the inn. That does not save the game, so keep that in mind. That guy up there is Bicky the Pirate, and if we talk to him, that will trigger a boss battle, so we want to head down to the armor store first. The wooden shield adds 2 points of absorb for our fighter and doesn't have any penalty to evade, and it only costs 15 gold. That is something we definitely want to purchase. Would love to buy the iron armor, which would be a big upgrade right now, but we don't have enough gold, although we can afford a couple pair of gloves, and they'll give us an additional 1 absorb and only take away 1% evasion. So we want to equip those to our top 2 characters, which we know are going to take 75% of the attacks, especially considering we're about to fight a boss. You can see that our characters are getting a lot stronger, although we're only at level 2. Equipment does help a lot. Once you have as much armor as you can afford, it's time to face Bicky the Pirate and the Pirates of Provoca. This is the only place in the game that you'll fight these green pirates, and while they only have 6 hit points, their number is legion. There's 9 of these guys. Considering how few hit points these pirates have, our best strategy here is to divide and conquer. Have each party member attack a different pirate, and make sure to have the Black Mage cast magic on one of them. Our goal was to try to take the pirates out in 3 rounds of combat, and we should be able to do that fairly reliably with this team. The more pirates we take out, the fewer that can attack us, so we want to take out as many as possible each round. Just make sure you keep attacking. You don't need to use magic with the red mage. He should be able to finish off the pirates with no problem. And the black belt even can take one out on his own, although sometimes the black belt doesn't deal quite enough to finish off his pirate. So we know that one at the top only has 1 health left, so a stiff breeze should be able to knock him over. We assigned the black mage to attack that top guy, so hopefully that works out. We should have maybe put 2 guys on him just to be safe. And for our trouble, we get the ship. We also gained level 3. Nice. The pirates are a pretty easy boss, and you get a nice haul of gold and experience points. If the game would let you, I'd probably fight these guys multiple times. Winning the ship is a very big deal. It opens up a whole new world for us to explore. Although at level 3, the seas are certainly not safe. We will encounter enemies when we're out at sea, and right now, those enemies could certainly kill us. Now that the pirates are defeated, the villagers have come out of their houses. This guy says he's a fugitive that escaped from a city called Melmond. Wow, what kind of city do you have to escape from? That does sound like trouble. This woman over here has some more relevant information about the sleeping prince. She says that Matoya's herb can save him. That's very helpful. Before we go, we should stop over at the armor shop and pick up gloves for any characters that don't have them yet. For a good portion of the game, the gloves are going to be the best accessory that most of these characters can wear. The fighter is going to have access to lots of different gauntlets and things like that, but a black mage? Yeah. The options are few and far between for a character like that, so we need to take advantage of buying these gloves whenever we can. One absorb is nothing to sneeze at this early in the game. And as we're looking at the stats for level 3, take note of hit percentage. Hit percentage is very important. Now you're probably thinking, yeah, of course, Captain Obvious, hit percentage is very important because if we miss, you don't do any damage. Well, yeah, but that's not the only reason why hit percentage is important. For every 32 points of hit percent you get, you'll actually get an additional hit when attacking in combat. So, for every 32%, you'll not only be more accurate, but it's also going to add a multiplier to your attack. That is huge. It's also enhanced by your weapons, so definitely pay attention to hit percentage whenever you're choosing weapons. Once we get into the ship, there's a secret trick we can do by pressing the A and B button at the same time 55 times. Yeah, they did not want you to do this by accident. To solve this number puzzle, the best strategy is to line up 1, 2, 3, 4 across the top, then solve the second row without disturbing the top row. Once the top 2 rows are completed, get 9 and 13 on the left, 10 and 14, and then the last 3 numbers will slide into place. If you beat this number puzzle, you'll actually be given 100 gold, which isn't really a lot of money, but you don't have to fight any enemies to get it, so if you desperately need money to use the inn and save your game, that is one way to get it. Here we have our first monster encounter on the high seas. Whenever you see these monsters, make sure to prioritize taking care of the odd eye enemies. The odd eyes only have 10 hit points, but they can stun and paralyze your team members, which will make them unable to attack or cast magic in combat. Being paralyzed is pretty annoying, so taking out the odd eyes first will make taking care of the rest of the enemies a lot simpler. You may be surprised to learn that there's only one monster set for the entire ocean. So that means that no matter where you're sailing your ship, the monsters will be the same. It is nice to not have to worry about accidentally sailing into a dangerous area. And another good thing about the monster set of the ocean is that none of the monsters will poison you, so you don't need to worry about carrying pure potions whenever you're at sea. We want to head over to a place called the Dwarf Cave, but we're going to go by Canaria Town, and that's where the cheapest inn in the game is, so if you need to use an inn, you should stop there along the way. As we head up here, we encounter another set of enemies. This time there's 6 hags. Seems pretty dangerous. We'll need to make sure that we use our lit magic this time. Now if we had the spell Lit 2, that hits all the enemies on the screen, and since these guys are weak to lit, that would just destroy this entire team. but we can't cast Lit 2 until our Black Mage reaches level 5. One thing that you may not know about this game is that the intelligence stat doesn't actually do anything, so you can completely ignore it. The way that spells deal damage is a fixed amount of damage, so it doesn't matter how much intelligence you have for that, and the amount of spells you can learn per level is always a fixed amount depending on what class you are. The Black Mage is going to learn spells faster and will have more spells than the Red Mage, so the Red Mage will lag behind a bit, but gets a lot more variety out of the deal. Since we don't have Lit 2, all we can do is just keep chipping away at these guys with our melee attacks. They only have 28 hit points, so as long as we don't just keep missing, we should be able to clear them fairly easily. We can divide our attacks up between these last two and see if we can take out at least one of them. And whenever there's only one enemy left, I like to just hold down the attack button to make everybody do an all-out attack. So you just hold the button down and everybody will fight. And that's a good way to take care of the last enemy, especially when you know you're not going to be using magic. One more shot should do it, I think. Ah, missed, of course. Alright, everybody fight. Everybody fight, get this guy. Alright, well, that could have defeated him in one shot. Why didn't you do that the first time, you can? I kind of imagine you can to be this obnoxiously positive type guy that's always super upbeat no matter how bad things get. You can's the kind of guy that takes a savage hit and just gets right back up with a smile. Over here we have an asp, and this is the first enemy that we fought that can potentially poison us. Poison is very annoying. Every step that you take will deal you a damage when you're poisoned, but even worse, it makes this obnoxious noise that will make you want to mute your TV. We want to head down and to the left here, but first another battle. Well, I'm glad we get a chance to strike first here because we definitely want to run away. And whenever you get a preemptive strike, unless it's a monster that you can't escape from, your run will work immediately. That'll save us from facing those ogres and creeps, and once we get inside this dwarf cave, we won't have to worry about facing monsters anymore. There's none inside. This is an optional side quest, but we're going to get over 1,000 gold out of these 2 treasure chests, so it seems worth it at this point in the game. I don't know how else we're going to get 1,000 gold that fast. Since we're here, we might as well talk to some of the dwarves. That guy tells us about how bracelets can be worn as armor for characters like mages. And this guy's telling us about how the earth is rotting away in the west. We'll get to that in chapter 3. This guy is the blacksmith, and he says he can make us a legendary sword if we can find adamant. Well, I know where we can get some, but I have no idea how we're going to kill Wolverine. That guy seems really tough. If we head down here to the bottom, we can meet a dwarf named Norik. Norik requires TNT, and if we get him some, he'll open up a new path for our ship to sail. Over here we can see a door that's locked by a mystical key, and that's the ultimate goal here in chapter 2. If we can wake the sleeping prince, he'll give us the key, and with the key we'll be able to get all kinds of treasures, and one of those treasures is the TNT that Norik needs to open up that path. Once we get the TNT to Norik, we'll be able to explore new lands, and that's how we'll move on to chapter 3. Hooray! Yeah, hooray, guy. Thanks, man. And for now, we're done with the dwarf cave, but we will be coming back here later. On the way back to Bravoka from the dwarf cave, we can stop in Canaria Town to use the cheapest inn in the game, which will restore our health and magic and also save. But that's not the only reason why we wanted to come here. We also want to grab the lit magic for our red mage. We already have lit magic for the black mage, but having 2 casters that can cast Lit is going to be very valuable as we travel along the sea. We're going to be traveling the seas a lot in the next part, so having 2 casters that can cast Lit, as the kids say, is gonna be awesome. With our business completed here, we can head back to our ship and set sail for Provoca. As we're crossing the sea here, we'll likely hit 1 or 2 battles. There's a lot of different things that we could face here in the sea, and we haven't seen much more than Sahag so far, so hopefully we'll get a bit more variety. Oh, here we go. This time we've encountered a shark. Sharks come up almost 20% of the time, and they're always alone, which is nice. They have 120 hit points, meaning that they have more health than the first boss. So we want to use our Lit magic, and you can see that it deals that extra 50% damage because the shark has a weakness to Lit. You can see that in his enemy data on the right side in the green box. And with the shark defeated, everybody got promoted to level 4. Excellent. Whenever we get back to Provoca, it's going to be time to purchase a bit of level 2 magic. Unfortunately, level 2 magic is a bit of a dumpster fire. It's only sold here in Provoca, and it's almost all garbage. The one shining star is Ice, which works similarly to the Lit and Fire magic that we already have, except that Ice deals a bit more damage. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like as many enemies are weak against Ice, so I don't feel like you get as much mileage out of it as you will with Fire magic. The other spells are all pretty useless, but whatever you do, do not buy Temper. In this game, Temper is bugged, so it doesn't actually do anything. It's supposed to enhance one of your attackers, and it will work if you're playing one of the remake versions of Final Fantasy, so you would want to buy it in that case. But here on the NES version, you should probably save your money for something more useful, like that investment that Bernie Madoff was talking about, or maybe some NFTs. We also stopped over at the weapon shop to pick up 2 short swords. These are for our fighter and our red mage, and they're going to be a huge upgrade over the rapiers that they were using. The short swords deal 6 more damage, and they have twice as much hit percent. They're very good, and we're about to grind up some levels fighting enemies, so make sure to pick those up before leaving Provoca. There's a very easy way to level up super fast in the early game, but before we can do it, we need to reach level 5 so that our black mage can use level 3 magic. To get to level 5, we're going to have to do a small bit of level grinding in the traditional way, and there's 2 places we could do it. We can go to this area below Provoca, where we'll run into a lot of ogre-type enemies. Ogres are extremely common, and they're a huge nuisance in the world of Final Fantasy. There's a lot of ogre overpopulation, and we're definitely going to get sick of seeing these guys. Green ogres are a bit more powerful, so you do want to focus some of your attacks on them and try to get that green ogre off the board. Ogres and green ogres don't have any elemental weaknesses or resistances, so the extra damage that the ice spell deals is going to be pretty helpful here. At level 4, we shouldn't have a lot of trouble defeating ogres, and the best thing about fighting them is they drop a lot of gold pieces. This early in the game, we are quite broke, and we're going to need all the money that we can get to upgrade our equipment. So every bit of gold definitely counts. The problem with fighting in this area is we might run into some enemies like arachnids or asps, and those guys can poison us. And poisoning is a problem this early in the game. It makes an annoying noise, and it's going to weaken any character that's poisoned. The only way we can get rid of the poison is to use a pure potion, and eventually we could use the pure spell, but I do not recommend that you buy the pure spell. It's a waste of money. Pure potions are super cheap, you might as well just buy those instead. If you don't have a good supply of pure potions, that's not going to be the best place to level up. And it might not be the best place overall. I actually recommend a different spot to grind from level 4 to level 5, and that's what we're going to do now. So we stopped over in Provoca just to use the inn, and we're going to jump back into our ship and set sail for the sea. The place that we want to go is over here near Canaria Town. Now you may be thinking, how are we going to gain a lot of experience points fighting the imps over here? And you're right, we're not going to get any experience points that way. We're just fighting over here because Canaria has the cheapest inn in the game, and the monsters in the ocean are the same everywhere, so if we want to grind monsters in the ocean, this is the best spot to do it. So just fight any ocean enemies that you face, none of them will poison you, which is awesome, and if you get weak between battles, it only costs 30 gold to use the inn over in Canaria, so you can just stop by, drop off 30 gold and refill. It'll also save your game, so if anything goes tragically wrong, you'll be able to pick up right where you left off. After a few fights, you'll be able to easily get the experience you need, and your party will be promoted to level 5. Now that we're at level 5, we're going to be much stronger than before, and it's time to head down to the city of Elfland, where we're going to be able to purchase level 3 magic. Elfland is located almost directly south of Canaria Town, so we just want to pilot our ship downwards and we should find a dock where we can weigh anchor and debark. Over in the forest surrounding Elfland, there's some familiar enemies. This pack of wolves got the jump on us, and just a few minutes ago that would have been a reason to panic, but now that we're level 5, our characters are much more capable. We have ice magic to take care of the gray wolves, and our melee character should actually be able to hit them now. You'll notice that Beat actually deals some damage with his punches at this point, so he was able to take out that front wolf with no problem. 35 damage from our fighter isn't too bad, and a big 74 from the black mage took out that gray wolf at the bottom in a single shot. Very nice. With only 2 gray wolves left, we should have no problem fighting them, and since we're so close to town, we're going to be able to use the inn right after this battle, so there's no reason why we shouldn't just let all of our magic rip. And that's gonna do it. With those wolves defeated, we should have no problem moving on to Elfland. There's 2 parts here. There's actually the city and the castle. Right now we want to walk into the city, and this guy wants us to save the prince. Yeah, that's why we're here, dude. Well, actually we're here because we want to buy this magic spell for game. It costs a lot of money, but you definitely want to spend that 1500 gold to get Fire 2. It will be worth every penny. But level 3 black magic isn't the only good thing they sell here in Elfland, and after we stop to chat with this guy about the Dark Elf, we can pop over into the armor shop for some solid upgrades. First, we're going to move the cap down to our red mage. We can get something a little bit better than the cap here for our fighter, the wooden helmet. The wooden helmet is 3 times as effective in battle, so we certainly want to pick that up. We're also going to want to sell off the wooden shield so that we can pick up the iron one, which is twice as good, although it costs a lot more money. So make sure to get the iron shield and the wooden helmet for the fighter, and then pick up 2 caps for our black belt and our black mage. Pretty much anybody can wear a cap, and that's one of the only helmets that these guys are going to be able to wear for quite some time. We still can't afford the iron armor, but that's okay. We're actually pretty powerful right now, and we're about to come into a lot of money, so in a very short time we'll be able to have whatever we want. If we look at our stats right now, you see the fighter has 32 hit percent, which means that whenever he attacks in combat now, he's going to do 2 hits instead of just 1, which essentially means he's going to deal double damage. Pretty awesome. Everybody else is coming along well too. And as we exit Elfland, there's multiple ways we can get out of here. We can talk to this guy who lets us know that silver items are also good, and that's true. We're going to want to buy the silver sword very soon, and that is something that they sell here. We don't have any money for that at the moment though, so now it's time to go to the secret level up area. Let's head into our ship and set sail for Canaria. We're just stopping here to use the inn, so welcome to the Hotel Canaria. Such a lovely place, such a lovely face. And with that, let's get back to sea and head over to the right towards Provoca. Whenever you're sailing at sea, there is one set of monsters that you're hoping to meet. That set of monsters are known as the Kaizoku, and they look a lot like the pirates we fought in Provoca. These guys have a good bit more hit points and come in sets of 1 to 5, but the reason that we like fighting them? It's all about the Benjamins, baby. These guys are worth 120 gold pieces each, and they're pretty easy to take care of. They're not weak against lit magic like most other creatures that you fight in the sea, so you may want to use your ice magic against these guys, which deals a bit more damage, and may have a chance to take them out in a single shot. So whenever you see these guys, you'll definitely want to take advantage of fighting them to get that loot. And wow, 84 damage from our fighter? Now that he has 32 hit percent and is dealing 2 hits per attack, he is dealing just a ton of damage. With the Kaizoku defeated, we're going to head over to Provoca to pick up some supplies. The towns of Provoca and Conaria are the only 2 places in the game where you can buy a tent. And we want to get at least 1 tent here, maybe 2, and we're also going to want to stock up on pure and heal potions before we go over to the secret level up zone. Just do not forget to buy that tent. The tent will allow us to save our game while we're out on the world map, which is a very powerful ability. When we're in the secret level up area, we're going to be fighting some very dangerous enemies, and if we get wiped out, well, if we saved using a tent right before the battle, then we actually lost nothing and can just try it again. Very, very convenient. So make sure you pick up a tent, a few pure and heal potions, and then we're going to head out of Provoca and make our way southeast. There are 2 different enemy sets in this area that you switch between as you walk along this path, and it's kind of tricky to figure out where one bleeds into the other one. But it looks like we ran into some ogres again. Ogres are pretty easy enemies at this point. We should be able to effectively deal with just 2 standard ogres without the green one being involved. We just want to divide up our attacks so that we use a few powerful ones on each ogre, and we should be able to finish these guys in 2 or 3 rounds of combat. There are just so many ogres in this game. I think that the problem is, ogres thrived for a very long time, but now that the world is all messed up because the orbs went dark, well, they're very hungry and they're starting to get aggressive. With the ogres defeated, we want to head down around this way, and you'll see that there's a place where we can dock our ship, but we can't actually sail there yet. Up here we ran into 3 gray imps, and this battle could be a lot more dangerous. They could actually mix in some gray wolves or some regular imps, but regular imps pose no threat at all. If you're ever in a battle where there are regular imps, you can mostly just ignore those guys until all the other enemies are defeated. At this point, they'll be lucky to be able to deal more than 1 or 2 damage to your party members. With the gray imps defeated, we can now proceed on to the secret level up zone. And there it is, it's at the very tip of that peninsula, but first, another ogre? Alright, we're just gonna go all out attack on this guy, and I'm not gonna waste any good magic, so we'll just use regular fire from the black mage, and that should quickly take care of this guy in a single round of combat. Yeah, get out of here, ogre. Now we can get back to what we were doing. The first thing we need to do is use a tent to save the game. These are very dangerous enemies up here. This area actually has the same enemy set as the area north of it. It just happens to extend down to this small area. Normally you'd need to have levels in the high teens or maybe even 20s to fight these monsters, but we're going to do it at level 5. It is possible we can get a bad monster though, and this Tyro is one of them. If you see a Tyro, that guy will wreck our party. You might as well just reset. Let's try that again. Alright, we got Zombols this time, and that's what we were looking for. The zombies and the troll that came with them this time are both weak against fire magic, so our Fire 2 spell is going to deal significant damage to each one of these guys. Almost 100 in each hit, and the troll took 146. Very good. Now we can use our fighter and our remaining magic spells to clean up the rest of the battle. The black belt can try to help out too, but he will not be able to deal a lot of damage at this point. This is going to be one of the more difficult battles we fight in the game, but whenever we survive this one, we're going to get really good rewards. Each of those zombies is worth 1,050 experience points and 1,050 gold. If we survive this battle, we will be immediately promoted to level 6, which is extremely nice. And if we don't survive the battle, well, we saved right before this, so we can just continue and try again. No harm, no foul. Alright, only one enemy remaining and he has already been damaged, so an all-out attack should be able to finish him off. Let's go. Looks like we can use maybe Lit? Yeah, it's not going to be great, but if we had the fire magic on our red mage, it would be good in this particular battle. And that's it. We've done it. In a single battle, we gained an entire level of experience. That would have normally taken 15, 20, maybe even 30 minutes doing it the normal way, but we did it in just one battle. And that's not the only time we can do this. Fighting these enemies is going to help us get to level 7, maybe even level 8 if we want it. These enemies are designed for much higher level encounters, so the experience points that we get for fighting them is going to be good. Right now though, we used up all of our magic, so we just need to get back to Provoca, so we can use the inn and restock on our tent and whatever else we need to do the level up loop again. We also have a lot of money right now, so it might be a good idea to stop over at Elfland and see what else we can buy. If you had an extra tent or a cabin, you could use that to save your game after fighting that battle, but it won't restore your magic, so you need to be careful. You can't unsave your game, so you're going to need to walk back to town with whatever magic you currently had. Once we get back here, we're going to buy another tent so that we're able to do that experience loop another time. And that's all we really need here in Provoca. So on the way out, we can just stop in the inn and save the game. And then we're going to go back to Elfland, where we have a few things to spend our 3,000 gold pieces on. Yeah, there's a couple things that we may want to buy. More level 3 magic, perhaps? So let's hop into our ship and set sail over the ocean for Elfland. We should know how to get there by now. If you've never gone to Elfland from Provoca, you just need to sail a bit to the left and then go down and follow the land whenever you get to the bottom. If you ever meet this Sahag enemy, that's one of the more dangerous enemies on the sea. You want to make sure to take that guy out right away. And here we are back in Elfland, and we're going to head right here to the Black Magic Shop. It wouldn't be the worst idea for our red mage to also be able to cast Fire 2, and now that we're at level 6, he'll be able to do so. With 2 casters being able to cast Fire 2, the next time we run into those zombies, it's going to be quite a bit easier. The last time we were in Elfland, we were a bit sad that we couldn't afford the iron armor, but now we definitely can, so it's time to pick that up. We can also get a copper bracelet for game. It only has an absorb of 4, but that's a lot better than the cloth armor he currently has, so we should certainly pick one of those up to give him a little bit of help if he does take some hits. With all this new equipment and magic, the enemies over in the secret level zone better look out. Our characters are much more capable now, and you can definitely see that in the stats. The black belt is still lagging behind with only 12 damage, but he's going to be dangerous soon. And the red mage has 27% hit rate right now, which is only 5 away from being able to deal a second hit whenever he attacks in combat. With everybody equipped, we want to use the inn again just in case we run into any encounters at sea that we'll want to use magic for. It only costs 100 gold, and since we're feeling a bit wealthy now, that doesn't seem like quite as much money as it did before. Now that we're finished here in Elfland, it's time to head back to the Provoca area, and before that, more ogres. Yeah, these are definitely not the last ogres we're going to see. But let's test out some of our new stuff. Try a little fire magic on for size ogres. We now have 2 casters that can do it, which will quickly take care of those guys. It's fine. We're going to use the inn and Provoca anyway before we go to the level up area, so we might as well use as much magic as we can. Back here over at the zone, this time we got the Frost Wolves. These guys are very dangerous, so make sure to use as much fire magic as you have whenever you meet these guys. You'll hopefully be able to take out a few of them before they attack you, because Frost Wolves can use a blizzard type attack, which is called Frost, and that will deal damage to every member of our party, and significant damage at that. If too many Frost Wolves go before your characters, there's a good chance that they could wipe you out. Remember, we always use a tent or a cabin to save the game before we fight enemies in the secret level up zone, so if we run into the Frost Wolves and die, it's not that big of a deal. Honestly, we don't want to run into the Frost Wolves. They don't give you quite as good experience points and gold as the Zombols do. The encounters that you meet on the way back to Provoca should be trivial at this point, but if you do run into those werewolf enemies, those guys can poison you, so that's why we've been carrying around a supply of pure potions. If you run out of pure potions or you're getting low, it's very important to restock those whenever we're back in town, so that's one of the things that we're going to do here in Provoca. One of the most annoying things about the original Final Fantasy is you can't just go into the store and be like, I would like to purchase 99 potions, please. You can do that in pretty much all the other Final Fantasies, but for this one, I suppose that technology hadn't been invented yet. I can't imagine how frustrating this interaction would be in real life. You'd be like, hi, I'd like to buy 10 heal potions, 5 pures, 2 tents, and a cabin, and the shopkeeper would be like, ahem, and would gesture to a sign that says, 1 item per transaction, no exceptions. So I guess you'd be like, alright, 1 heal potion please. That'll be 60 gold pieces, thank you very much. Okay, 1 heal potion please. That'll be 60 gold pieces, thank you very much. And you'll start to wonder, is this the shopkeeper's way of somehow evading paying Final Fantasy taxes? I can't quite put my finger on it, but I think there might be something illegal going on here. In any case, once you're all stocked up, use the inn, and we're going to head back to the secret level up zone. Over here we ran into some arachnids, and these are those enemies that can poison you. So in addition to the werewolves, there's also arachnids. These are not in the secret level up zone, these are in the area that leads up to it. So you don't have to worry about fighting super high level poisoners. However, these guys can definitely get you with some poison, and you really don't want to be poisoned whenever you're fighting those high level monsters. So you do need to take these guys seriously. If you have enough pure potions on you, then it's not really that big of a deal if you get poisoned. What it's going to deal you maybe 1 or 2 damage per round of combat. Not a problem. You'll see right now that the fighter took 2 damage after that round ended. That was because of the poison, so that's all it really does. It's just annoying. With the arachnids defeated, we'll be leveled up to level 7. Well, that's just great. Level 7 will make us much more powerful whenever we battle some more enemies up here in the secret level up zone, so that was very timely. I don't like the fact that the game reorders our party every time somebody gets poisoned, but it is a good way to remember that it actually happened before you take damage. so you'll notice right away that the wrong character is at the front of your party. With our level 7 team, we can reorder and put good old You Can back at the top. We need to do a little Final Fantasy shuffle here to get everybody in the right place. And now it's time to hit that level up zone again. But remember, always use a tent first. You never know when you might run into that Tyro. That guy's a problem. And let's see, with level 7 we may be able to take multiple battles without going back to the inn. Let's see what it is this time. Excellent. 3 Zombuls is one of the best possible fights we could draw here. With the only one that would be better would be 4 Zombuls, which would be awesome. Having 2 casters that can use Fire 2 should be able to clear almost all of these in a single round of combat. I'll be surprised if more than one of them survives. Let's see what happens with the second shot of Fire 2. Ugh, only 52 on that guy? Well, with an all-out attack, we should be able to quickly finish him off. And we are going to get some serious rewards this time. Alright. Tons of experience points, which are divided up amongst the characters. And we also got a lot of money. With that much money, we can go down here into Elfland and buy one of the best weapons in the early game, the Silver Sword. The Silver Sword is so good, it's going to invalidate almost all the weapons we find for the next several hours of gameplay. And with our leftover money, we can also pick up Lit 2, which will make traveling at sea a lot easier. One shot of Lit 2 is going to fry those ocean enemies. Back up here at the secret level up zone, we can use a tent just like we always do. And you'll notice that this time the enemies are going to be in big trouble because we have a lot more castings of high level magic. 3 giants is one of the less desirable enemies that we could find. We can use our fire magic on them just as effectively as we can with most of the other enemies, but these guys won't give us quite as much gold or experience. If you've recently saved the game and you run into a pack of giants, you might just want to reset and try to get a better battle, hopefully against some Zombuls. These guys take a good bit more hits to finish off because they're not actually weak to the fire magic, so they'll take a standard amount of damage from it. And that means it's going to take a good bit more rounds of combat to fight them, so we're just not going to get as much bang for our buck. They also can deal pretty heavy damage, so they're not a lot less dangerous than the Zombuls either. I've seen giants deal upwards of 100 damage per hit, so these are just not the most efficient way to level up. You'll see whenever we finish this battle how little we actually get from it compared to the other fights that we did. Well, with only one left, we should be in good shape here. And here are our rewards. Yeah, 659 experience. We would have got at least 100 more for the Zombuls, but it was enough to get us to level 8, and level 8 is the goal. If we have level 8, we should be powerful enough to take on the game's first dungeon, the Marsh Cave. Now, before we go to the Marsh Cave, we want to stop here in Elfland and definitely buy a second silver sword so that our red mage can also wield one, and that's going to make him much more effective in combat. The way that people will usually die in the Marsh Cave is because they didn't bring enough supplies. We need to make sure that we bring just a ton of heal and pure potions before we go down there, and we may not have enough money for that right now. To get a full supply of heal potions, it costs about 6,000 gold pieces, and while we don't need 99 of them, it would be nice to go down there with at least 40 or 50 so that we can heal ourselves frequently. We'll also want a few cabins and some pure potions. The enemies in the Marsh Cave are notorious for poisoning us, So I would recommend bringing at least 30 pure potions so that anytime we get poisoned, we just don't even care about it. We'll use a pure potion and not worry at all. So while we could go to the Marsh Cave next, it seems like it would be a good idea to stop over at the secret level up zone one more time, and we can pick up some more money and come back and just buy all the supplies that we need. We have pretty good equipment and magic right now, but without all those potions, it's probably going to be a problem. With that, we'll head back to the secret level up zone. We'll dock the ship by Provoca, and if we don't need to use the inn, we can just move on to the right. Now, here's a battle that we haven't seen yet. It's actually possible to meet a mad pony all the way back near the Temple of Fiends, but these ones come in sets of 2 to 4 over here near Provoca. So whenever you meet some mad ponies, let loose some ice magic spells, and you'll be able to easily take them out. We are very powerful right now, especially with those silver swords, so these enemies don't pose much of a threat right now, but if you had met them much earlier on, they could be a lot more dangerous, so don't spare your ice magic whenever you meet the mad ponies. And we'll head back up here to the secret level up zone. Without this secret level up zone, getting your party up to level 8 can take hours, and using it only takes minutes, which is awesome. We're going to use a cabin because we fancy now. Yeah, we're balling out using a cabin. Spared no expense, ladies. And we hit the giants again. Only 2 of them this time. We're not going to waste a lot of our magic against these giants. We should be able to handle them now that we have the silver swords. Excellent. We can use a little bit of ice magic because we don't really need it to fight any of the enemies that we'll encounter here in the secret level up zone, other than giants. And since our black mage is unlikely to be able to deal more than 1 or 2 damage to these guys with a melee attack, the ice magic will make him a much stronger contributor to this fight. 2 hits at 84 damage will finish off that guy. And if you attack an enemy that is dead, in this game, you will simply miss. So you need to be very careful about how you choose your attacks. In other Final Fantasy games, your character will just attack another monster, but in this one, they'll just be ineffective. And now that we have silver swords and level 8, we can take several fights over here. So let's try our hand against 1 Zombo and 1 Troll. Fire 2 will definitely take care of these guys. Would actually like it if more Zombols would show up so that we can get more bang for our buck out of our Fire 2 magic, but we'll take what we're given here. A few rounds of Fire 2 and a couple attacks from our melee guys, and this battle will be over shortly. We're just going to do an all-out attack to finish off this Zombol and save our magic for one more fight here in the level up zone. And that'll do it. Those guys are history, and we got some more cash. We can use some magic now to heal our people up. Whenever we're in dungeons, we would normally use heal potions to do most of our healing so that we can save our magic for offense. But since we'll be going back to an inn fairly shortly after this next battle, we might as well take advantage of the cure magic that we have. Back and forth, let's see what we get. We got the 3 Zombols, very good. 4 is of course the best, but 3 is quite great. Our Fire 2 magic will take care of these very easily. And man, we are doing a lot of damage with our silver swords as well. The combination of Fire 2 and some silver swords is very good. If only we can just level up the black belt a few more levels, he'll even be able to contribute a bit more. You can stay here and level up as much as you want at the secret level up zone. You can probably use it to gain several more levels. But with the money we just got, we should be able to afford all the supplies that we need, so this is the last time that we're going to be visiting the secret level up zone in this video. Back here in Provoca, you may recall that Provoca and Conaria are the only two towns in the game that sell tents, so if we want to stock up on those, this is a good place to do it. We'll use the inn first so we can restore our magic points and save the game, and then we can head over to the item shop where we have a few things to purchase. The items that we're most interested in are a supply of tents, heal potions, and pure potions, all of which we're going to need to pass the Marsh Cave. And yeah, this takes a long time. Come on, man. Just pay the taxes on the items. Don't make us do this. Well, whenever you have a decent supply of items, this one looks pretty good. It's time to head out of here, and we're going to make our way back across the sea and go to Elfland. The Marsh Cave is located near Elfland, so that's going to be our base of operations for taking care of this dungeon. Of course, you know how to get back to Elfland. Just dock your ship right above it. And we can stop here where we have a few more supplies to pick up. We've been buying a lot of level 3 magic here in Elfland, but if you go to the upper left corner of the city, you can also purchase level 4 magic. Level 4 has a few highlight spells, and the first one that we're going to want to pick up is Ice 2. Ice 2 is very similar to Lit 2 or Fire 2, in that it will hit all of the enemies on the screen, and this time it will use an ice element. Just like Ice versus Fire or Lit, Ice 2 deals more damage, so it's a nice one to pick up. We can also buy Fast, which we don't have enough money for right now, but that's a spell we'll definitely want to get for both our Red Mage and our Black Mage. Whenever we cast Fast on one of our melee attackers, that guy will do twice as many hits whenever he attacks, effectively doubling his damage. Pretty good. It's especially useful against bosses. Outside of Elfland, we're going to hit some more fights, and now that we're level 8 and have all this equipment, we used to be afraid of these wolves, but not so much anymore. We're plenty more accurate now, so we're not going to be missing very often, and it shouldn't take too much to finish these guys off. It's pretty amazing how much we've grown in only a few minutes. We want to save as much of our magic as possible here, so that's why we're not using any magic spells. We're going to be walking over to the Marsh Cave, and the Marsh Cave is that dungeon we've been preparing for. We want to save all of our magic so that we can use it in the dungeon, so we're going to need to rely on our melee attacks to take out any enemies that we meet along the way. Luckily, we're plenty powerful enough to do this, and if we take a bunch of hits, well, we can always use tents or cabins to take care of our health while we're outside. It's very important that you brought at least a couple tents with you, because we're going to want to save outside of the Marsh Cave, and we may actually want to come back out and save several times, so having multiple of those items will be helpful. With those wolves defeated, we're going to start hiking to the left of the city. Over to the left of those mountains, that's actually where the Marsh Cave is. And whenever we walk near it, there's a few spots where we can actually encounter some of the enemies that are meant to be right outside of the Marsh Cave. So there is a little bit of overlap that bleeds into this area. For now though, we're just getting the normal near Elfland enemies. And this is one of the reasons why we needed to bring a ton of pure potions, because right off the bat we got poisoned by an asp. One thing that you do need to remember is that after somebody gets poisoned, they're moved to the bottom of the party order, so you'll want to press the select button and do the Final Fantasy shuffle to get everybody back in their right spot. We could have left Beat and Game in the 4th and 3rd spot, but I'm used to Game being at the bottom, so it's just a little bit more comfortable to switch those back to their normal spaces. The only real difference between the 3rd and 4th party slot is that you can't use the B button to take back any attacks that you make with the last party member. Once you commit to your attack with them, well, that's it. Everything's going to start going after that. You want to pass through that space between the mountains and head over here to the left. Down here, we're going to encounter those Marsh Cave area enemies, and it includes one of those werewolves. We want to pay special attention to the werewolf. Out of this enemy set, the werewolf is the only one that can deal any kind of significant damage, and also he can poison us. So if you get bit by a werewolf in this game, it will not help you win any high school basketball championships. You'll just be poisoned and you'll have to use a pure potion. Now that that werewolf's out of the way, we can clean up the gray imps, which are very easy to defeat, and they only are dealing 7 damage to our mage, so you know that they're just not very dangerous. In fact, the mage was able to inflict 6 damage on that guy, leaving him with only 10 health left. I mean, these guys are super weak. Any kind of imp type enemies you don't really have to worry about very much, so always prioritize any other enemy types that are mixed in with them, especially werewolves. With those guys defeated, we want to head downwards, and that's going to take us towards an odd hole in the ground. And that's what we've been looking for. That's the Marsh Cave. Before we go inside, let's use a tent and save our game. Once we actually get into the Marsh Cave, we're going to have a decision to make. Go up or down. I recommend going up first. Here we met up with some shadow enemies, and these guys are undead, and unlike most undead, these ones will not paralyze our party members. Instead, they can just inflict a darkness attack. Darkness will reduce your hit percent, which will make it a little bit harder to hit them, and could reduce the number of hits you do whenever you attack. But it's really not as big of a deal as being paralyzed, which is what most undead enemies do. If we head up this way, we're going to be able to access a treasure room, but before that, here are some of the undead enemies that are dangerous. These are the kind that can paralyze you. Well, the ghouls can anyway. The zombies aren't dangerous at all. You want to make sure that both of your casters have Fire 2 queued up, in case one of them gets stunned. You can see how bad this would have been if we didn't have game casting Fire 2 here. 3 of our party members were stunned, and one of the worst things that can happen to you in this game is to have your entire party paralyzed, and you're just kind of sitting around hoping that one of them will wear off, and you'll be able to do something about this problem. Once you head up this way, you'll notice the stairs, and that's where we're going. There is an odd property about the treasure in this game. Sometimes when you pick up a treasure in one location, it'll make another chest empty. So if we take the stairs nearby and clear out all of the treasure up there, whenever we go back through later, there will be some chests that we'll be able to skip on our way to the very difficult areas in the basement. So that'll make our lives a lot easier as we go through. We'll easily finish off these shadow enemies. None of them have inflicted the darkness effect, so even that hasn't happened. These guys are really not that big of a deal. It's the other kinds of undead, the ghouls, that you need to worry about. Up here's that stairway, which will take us down to floor B2-A. Up here we can open this treasure and we'll find the large dagger, which is actually an upgrade to the weapon that our black mage currently has. So that's pretty nice. We're not doing a ton of melee attacks with the black mage, but whenever we do, we might as well deal a little bit more damage. The large dagger is one of the items that you'd be able to find in another treasure chest, so it is nice to pick it up now and not have to worry about finding it later. These gargoyles don't look very tough on paper, but they actually do multiple hits whenever they attack, so they can deal significant damage. You don't really need to use magic on them, so just take them out with your melee attacks and you shouldn't have too many problems. We're going to make our way over to the left, and we'll go inside this room. Up here we'll find another chest. This one contains some money for us. 680 gold is not too bad. And we'll want to head down to the bottom where we'll enter our third and final treasure room. But before that, we're going to face off with 3 bones and a crawl. None of these enemies can deal us significant damage, but the crawl is kinda dangerous. You want to take him out first. Whenever a crawl attacks, he doesn't deal a lot of damage, but he'll do like 7 or 8 hits, which will almost guarantee that whoever he attacks gets stunned. The bones can't deal a lot of damage anyway, so you can mostly ignore them until the crawl is defeated. Once you get rid of that crawl, clean up the bone enemies, and we'll easily be celebrating a victory. Make your way down to the bottom and up inside this treasure room. In here we finally run into the dreaded scum enemies. These don't look very intimidating and they only have 24 hit points, so what's the big deal? Well, they have an extreme amount of defense. The scum have the most absorb maybe in the entire game, so your melee attacks are not effective at all against them unless you get a critical hit. You really need to use magic to defeat these guys, so use your basic ice and fire spells to take care of them. Up here we'll find some more gold and a short sword, which we can cash in for money later. We don't really need to equip that to anyone. Once we got all the loot, we can leave this floor, and we're going to head back to the main stairway that led inside the Marsh Cave so that we can go back outside and use a tent or a cabin to heal up and save our game. So that's why it's so much more convenient to get the treasures in B2A first. Down here we hit the scums again, so we need to use our magic unless we get lucky, and well, we did that time. We got a critical hit. The way melee attack damage works in this game is if you take your damage score, that's the minimum amount of damage you will do per hit. If you multiply it by 2, that's the most damage that you'll deal per hit. But the actual amount of damage will be somewhere in between those. Unfortunately, that is before you add in the monster's defense, which is subtracted from whatever that damage roll is. If it reduces it to 0 or less, you'll only deal 1 damage, and that's normally what's going to happen whenever you attack a scum enemy. However, as you level up, and also your weapons can affect this as well, you'll get a higher critical hit rate, and if you happen to get a critical hit, it will add in your unmodified damage on top. So if you normally would deal 40 damage, and it would be reduced by 20 by the enemy's defense, well then you'll deal the 20 plus the original unmodified 40 and you'll deal 60 damage. So critical hits kind of ignore defense, and that's why it's one of the only ways that you can actually defeat a scum enemy without magic. Most enemies don't do critical hits, but there are a few that have a decent critical hit rate. But for the most part, you don't have to worry about it for monsters. However, if your fighter ever does take a big critical hit, that's one of the only ways that he can take significant damage, so you do need to be aware that that could happen. Once we've saved and come back into the Marsh Cave, it's time to head down this time, and that's going to take us towards our ultimate goal. There's 4 scums to fight this time. Remember, we only want to use our level 1 magic against them because they have such few hit points. We don't want to waste Fire 2 or Lit 2 or Ice 2 or any of our good magic against these guys, since we will be able to take them out in a few rounds by just using our normal basic magic spells. Meeting too many of these scum enemies can really bleed you out of magic spells though, so if you start to run out, then you may actually just want to run if you ever see 4 of these guys pop up like we did this time. I'm kind of hoping that maybe one of our melee attackers might get through with a critical hit, but we can't count on that this early in the game. So we'll still want to use some of our level 1 magic, at least with the Black Mage. Come on, critical. Nope, we're gonna have to rely on game. And, well, He was able to take care of the last scum, and you really don't get a lot of experience points or money for beating those guys either, so running away is not the worst idea. The thing that's bad about running away in this game is if you don't run, you oftentimes can take out enemies before they'll have a chance to attack you, reducing the amount of damage that you'll ultimately take. The game is actually paced pretty well, and you probably won't have to grind levels at all if you just fight the battles that come to you. In here we have 4 different monsters to fight, which is an interesting variety pack. The only one that's actually dangerous is the Scum, which we have to use a spell on, but the Muck is not like the Scum at all. He doesn't have extreme defense, so you can just use regular melee attacks on him. The Spider is also like a lesser version of the Arachnid and can't poison you, so the 2 priority targets here are the Scum and the Arachnid, although you should be able to quickly remove the Spider and the Muck with your less powerful attackers so that you won't have to worry about them ever getting a chance to damage you in combat. And it looks like we're going to have to use another Pure Potion, but you see why we brought a bunch of them. If you bring a bunch of Pure Potions, you don't feel bad about using them. This is the room that had all the treasure chests in it that are empty because we looted that other basement floor. So if you get all the treasures on B2A, you don't need to pick up any chests on B2B. This is a lot like that battle we just fought, but with one major difference. There's no Scum this time, so we don't have to worry about using any magic spells. Nice! Remember that the Arachnid is probably the most dangerous of the monsters here, but the other ones should be able to be taken out in a single hit, so you can just remove those quickly and then finish off that Arachnid last. And with this battle won, we should be very close to our goal now. Floor B3 is quite large and there's a number of treasures to find, but a lot of them are hidden behind locked doors, so we're not going to grab all of them right now, because we're going to have to come back later whenever we have a key. 3 Mucks is one of the easiest battles you can fight, so we're just going to speed through that. Those guys are easily taken out with your melee attacks. We can use some of those heal potions we brought to make sure that we're healthy between battles. You don't want to get surprised by the enemies and have low HP. That could end in disaster. If any of your party members dies, you have no way of bringing them back to life except by going all the way back to town and visiting the clinic, and that is very, very far away at this point. So we need to be quite cautious and make sure that everybody has high HP between battles. Over here we can grab one more chest. This one has a copper bracelet, which is actually something that would be nice for Beat to use. Beat doesn't feel like he usually needs to wear armor, but you know, Beat mostly communicates with his fists. He's not a man of many words. Oh, 4 more Scums again. We're gonna have to use big magic this time. 1 level 2 magic spell, or a Fire 2, Lit 2, Ice 2 type thing, we'll be able to take those out easily. But make sure you save a few castings of Lit 2 for these guys. There could be 2, 3, or even 4 wizards that you have to fight on this guarded space, and wizards are very dangerous. Surprisingly, they don't cast any magic, they just do pretty mean attacks. And this is an enemy that you can never run from. So whenever you see wizards, don't try to run, you must stand your ground and fight. Once they're defeated, you can open up this treasure chest, and inside we'll find the crown. The crown is what we came here for, but you don't get to simply teleport out after you grab it. We now have to walk all the way out of the Marsh Cave. Yeah, that's part of it. Here is a battle that we haven't experienced yet. It's very similar to the 3 bones and the crawl we fought earlier, but this time they added in a red bone, and a red bone is actually dangerous. Unlike the regular bones, red bones can actually deal some damage. So you want to take out the crawl first, which will avoid your people getting paralyzed, but then we can prioritize taking out that red bone. The regular bones probably won't be able to deal very much damage, so if you take out the crawl, which can paralyze you, and the red bone, this set of monsters should go down pretty easily. Still, with 144 HP, that red bone is nothing to sneeze at, so we need to make sure that our good melee attackers are attacking it. That should do it. And it seems like everybody else is going to be ineffective here, well, except for Game, who I randomly threw on fighting that bone. He actually got through and finished him off. Good work, buddy. And we want to come back here to the upper left. That's where the stairway back to floor B2B is. And we'll cut through this little room. And we want to go down below these pillars and then back up. This time there's 2 crawls, so if we get rid of those crawls, then we should have no problem finishing off the bones. But those guys don't pose much of a threat anyway. So we're going to head straight up here. And, oh man, we are really getting low on basic magic, and good magic too. Well, we're going to have to take these guys out and do our best. So maybe we can get some critical hits, that would be good. Come on, you guys. Ice spell should take out one of them. Don't bother using lit magic on these guys. Lit magic is not very good. I mean, it's better than a melee attack, but you should be using fire or ice whenever you're going against a scum. It's one reason why you may want to have your red mage learn the fire magic at level 1. It would be pretty helpful for him to have that right about now. And we actually got lucky with a critical hit, so that's good. And you can hear that noise that the poison makes. I forgot to use a pure potion immediately, and the game let us know. So we'll use our pure potion, take care of You Can. He's feeling better, back in his positive mood. Hey guys, that wasn't so bad. Who wants to fight some more battles? Yeah, You Can would probably be an obnoxious guy to hang out with, but we need him. He's a very important member of the team. Right near the center door, we'll find the ladder that'll take us back to basement floor number 1. And from here, it's not a very far walk to the exit. The enemies are a little bit easier on this floor as well. There's usually just those shadows. But, well, there's even more scums. We had to use lit that time. It worked. But it's not as good as fire or ice. Can use a pure potion to take care of Vito. And remember to put him back in the proper order. I do wish they made it a little bit easier to reorder the party in this game. And there we go. The stairway out of the Marsh Cave. Now all we need to do is walk all the way back to Elfland. So yeah, we're going to use a tent or a cabin out here to save the game. So we're just going to hurry back to Elfland. Whenever you're fighting this battle with the ogres and the creeps, you probably want to take out the creeps first. They have a lot less hit points than the ogre and can be finished off in a single round of combat, yet they deal about the same amount of damage if they hit you, so make sure to prioritize those guys first. Whenever we get back to Elfland, we do have a couple things that we want to sell. The small dagger is only worth 2 gold pieces, so it's almost not even worth doing. But we can get 275 for that short sword that we found, so that's probably worth it. Now that we have that crown, the next thing that we need to do is fight a boss, so we want to purchase that fast magic from the level 4 magic shop. Before we go over there, we can sell a few pieces of extra armor to raise some money. We definitely don't need that wooden armor that Beat has been wearing, because now he has a copper bracelet, which does essentially the same thing without the evasion penalty. It's kind of funny to think that some kind of bracelet would be more effective than an entire suit of armor, but that's how things work here in the world of Final Fantasy. Up here in the black magic shop, we definitely want to get Game to buy that fast magic. If you have the money, you can buy it for your red mage too, but for now, it's mostly important that the black mage can cast it. And when you're up in that corner of the town, it's actually faster to just leave town and come back in if you want to use the inn. Make sure to save your game, because the next battle against that boss, well, It is not going to be an easy one. The boss lives in a place called the Northwest Castle, which shockingly is northwest of Elfland. Over here is one of those battles that bleeds over from the Marsh Cave, so be aware that could happen as you walk through this area. You've already been this way before though, so we're just going to head the same way that we went to the Marsh Cave, except instead of going between the mountains on the left, we're just going to keep going up until we find a castle. And there it is. Make sure to use a tent to save the game here because things could go terribly wrong. This boss is called Astos, the Dark Elf, and he's a spellcaster. The way spellcasting enemies work in this game is that they will always cast spells from a set list in order. Whenever the boss gets his turn to attack, he will have a 75% chance to use a spell, and the first one he always casts will be Rub, which is an instant KO spell. Because of the way party order works, he will likely direct that Rub spell at whoever is in the top position, so that's why we moved Beat up there. He's our most expendable party member right now, and we definitely want to make sure that Yukan survives. We're going to use the fast spell on Yukan so that he's sped up, and sadly, Beat is probably going to die. Yep, there it is. There's a chance that the Rub won't work, but most of the time it will. So you just kind of have to accept that. Now, if he kills one of your more important party members, you may want to reset. That's why we used a tent before this battle. More than likely though, you're coming out of here one party member down, but for defeating him, you get the crystal. Now, it's important to note that you will not be able to fight this boss until you have the crown. He'll just be an imposter king until then. Once you have the crystal, we can walk out of here, and we know what we need to do with the crystal. We need to take it back to the witch Matoya so that she'll trade us the herb that we need. But before that, we want to make our way back to Elfland, where we can use the clinic and bring our boy Beat back to life. Sorry, buddy. Fortunately, in this game, we don't need to find all the Dragon Balls and summon Shenron to bring this guy back to life. Now that Beat is back to life, we actually made enough money during that battle that we can buy the second fast spell that we weren't able to afford before. Would have been nice to have it for the boss, but considering one of our melee attackers was going to die anyway, it was certainly not mandatory. So we'll pick it up now while we can, and we'll definitely want to use the inn to save, and we'll do that little trick where we walk outside and then walk right back in again. Once we've rested up at the inn, we know what must be done next. We need to hop on into our ship and set sail for Matoya's cave. Something that you may not know is that you can actually sail your ship underneath the bridge that they built near Canaria. So you can sail right on through there. And up here there's a dock where we can weigh anchor, and that is the closest point to the cave, so that's the best way to get up here right now. Of course, we know how to fight some imps. Just use your melee attacks on these guys. There's no reason why these imps should give you any problems. Head up this way and make your way to the cave. Over here we may have to fight some slightly more difficult enemies, and those were ones that we ran away from in the very beginning. So now we got a little bit of revenge on them. Take that, wolves. When we come up here and talk to Matoya, she will trade us the herb for the crystal. And now she can see. Well, good. I guess she's been sitting around blind this entire time. Now that we have the herb, it's time to go to the Castle of Elf, which is right here in the middle of Elfland. We've never needed to go in here before, but now that we have the herb, we can go and rescue the sleeping prince. So I guess nobody has to kiss him after all. That's too bad. Considering that Astos is the one that made the prince fall asleep, you'd think that defeating him would be enough to break the spell. But no, instead we have to do a little daisy chain of fetch quests, and then we can wake up the sleeping prince. Well, I guess that's how things work in video games. Once the prince is awake, you want to talk to him, and we'll finally have the Mystic Key. With the Mystic Key, we can now open some locked doors, and there's actually a few in this very castle. Up here, we can learn about the Cave of the Dwarves, which we've been to before, but thanks for the tip. And if we head around this way, you can see that there's a treasury up in the upper right corner. But how do we get over there? What we need to do is come down here to the bottom and walk around on the edge. Make your way up to the top and we'll be able to open up those chests. And inside we'll find a few relatively useful items. The silver hammer would be decent if we had a white mage, but we're just going to sell that. And we'll find a copper gauntlet that we can equip to our fighter, so that's pretty good. As we equip our new copper gauntlet, our mission becomes clear. In addition to the locked door that we just opened here in the Castle of Elf, there are other locations that feature locked doors that can be opened with the Mystic Key. Those locations include the Dwarf Cave that we've already been to, the Northwest Castle, Castle Conaria that we certainly have to visit, the Temple of Fiends, that's one that we're going to skip for now. There's actually a few other treasure chests that we didn't get when we first stopped in there, but we're going to have to go back to the Temple of Fiends later in the game, and none of the treasures that you'll find there are really that useful at this point, so there's not a good reason to go over there right now. But if you want to, there are some locked doors there and some treasures you can find, but we're going to be stopping there later. The last location that has locked doors, well, it's the Marsh Cave. Yeah. Well, we can stop here and learn Cure 2 for our red mage, but if we want to get all the treasure chests, we are going to have to go back to the Marsh Cave. And if you're thinking we should just ask Joe Rogan if we can eat a cockroach instead of going back into the Marsh Cave, well, we are a lot more powerful now, and there is some good stuff down there, so it might actually not be as bad as you think. The first one of those locations that we're going to go back to is the mandatory one, and that is Castle Conaria. It's here that we'll be able to find the TNT that we need to open up the passage at the Dwarf Cave, so we certainly want to come here before we go all the way over there. Make your way up the right side of the castle, and when you get to the top, we'll curve around to the left, and there's a few people up here that we haven't spoken with yet. This guy says we should use that key. Yeah, that's why we came, duh. And up here we'll find a couple helpful items. The saber would be good if we insisted on having a thief on our team, but most of this stuff are things that we're going to sell, other than the silver knife, which is quite good for our black mage to use. So that's an upgrade that we can put into effect right now. Make sure to equip it before we head to the left treasure room, where we're going to find even more good stuff, particularly that TNT we've been looking for. We know this iron stuff is worth some money since we purchased it already, and we'll probably be selling a lot of it back to the store, but it's nice to make some extra money, and we had to come here anyway to get that TNT. Once we have it, you can feel free to exit the castle, but there is a secret that I wanted to talk about while we're here. Up here on the left side of the castle, there's an invisible person. Nintendo Power originally reported that it was an invisible man, but there's some gender bias at play there. It's actually an invisible woman. The only way to see the invisible woman is to use a game genie code that lets you walk through walls, because the way that the game is coded, the programmers put her inside of a room, but there's not a room where she is, so she's invisible. However, if you enter another room, the game opens up all of the rooms whenever you're inside one, and it closes them all whenever you walk back out the door, so if you walk through a wall, the game will think you're still inside of a room, and you'll finally be able to actually see the Invisible Woman. So that's how that works. She was coded in there so that she could remind you to talk to the princess, but it doesn't work too well. She only says the message about talking to the princess before the princess is rescued, and once you've saved her, she doesn't say it anymore. She just says, "So you're the Light Warriors?" But it was supposed to help you remember to pick up the loot, which is a mandatory item. Back here in Conaria Town, we can round out our spells and pick up the sleep spell for 100 gold, and we can also visit the armor and weapon stores and sell off some of the stuff that we just picked up. We're going to use the inn here to rest up and save our game, and then we're going to head back off to the sea, where we can finally reach the Dwarf Cave and open up that passage to the rest of the world. So we'll hop in our ship and head over to the left. We've been to the Dwarf Cave before, so you sort of know what to expect over here. And yeah, some more ogres. Thanks but no thanks. And just make your way down here and head to the left through these mountains. And inside, well, nope, one more fight. A single asp will not survive very long against us. An all-out attack should take care of this guy, but if we do get poisoned, well, we have pure potions, no big deal. And now we can finally go into the Dwarf Cave. The last time we came here, there was a big treasure room down in the lower left that we weren't able to enter, and this time we're gonna be able to get in there. There's a lot of good stuff inside, so we certainly want to head down there. And while we're down in this direction, we can also speak with Norik, who wanted our TNT, and now he can open up that canal. Perfect. And here's the treasure room. Make sure that you sold off everything you didn't need before you come down here, because there's going to be a lot of loot to pick up. Here's that iron helmet. Grab that. Dragon sword. The dragon sword is especially effective against dragons, and it does a decent amount of damage, which is good. I don't particularly like these weapons that are only good against certain enemy types because you never really know what kinds of enemies you're going to be fighting against, but if one just happens to have a pretty good damage rate anyway, well then it's probably worth it. Make sure to equip any of the good stuff that we found. The silver armor is especially appealing here because our red mage can actually equip it, and it provides 18 absorb, which is very good for armor at this point in the game. You wouldn't think a magic user would be able to use such powerful armor, but that's why red mages are awesome. From here we want to head back to Elfland because we're going to be making our way back to that northwest castle. But first it looks like we're fighting yet another ogre. One thing that's a problem with ogres is that unlike most other primate-type mammals, whenever they give birth, they have litters of about a dozen ogre babies. So yeah, that can get out of control pretty fast. Here in Elfland, we can use the inn and save our game, and make sure to pick up any supplies that we need before we head back to the Northwest Castle, and from there, the Marsh Cave. So we're just going to start making our way back to the left. Getting to the Northwest Castle is pretty easy. Once we get back here, there's no enemies that we have to worry about fighting in here, so we just want to make our way all the way around to the top, and then back across to the left. We'll come down to this green space, and here is where the treasure room is, but don't enter too quickly. There's a guarded space right in front of that first treasure chest, where you'll have to fight a pretty mean battle against a bunch of enemies called images. I'll actually trigger the battle so you can see what it is, but these are undead enemies that can stun your party, so you could very easily get messed up by these guys, and I highly recommend that you just walk around them and do not touch this guarded space. If you do want to fight the images, at least go in there and get the iron gauntlet and equip it first. The power staff is something we can sell for a lot of money, but it's not a very good item to equip. And here they are, Make sure to take these guys seriously if you decide to fight them, and use your Fire 2 magic to quickly take them out. If they hit you, there's a very high chance that you'll be paralyzed. Yeah. And then you'll be taken out of the battle altogether, and if your whole team gets paralyzed, there's a good chance you could die against these dudes. So yeah, make sure to get that Fire 2 magic going, and hopefully one of your mages will get it off before everybody gets stunned. And from here, we're just a hop, skip, and a jump away from that Marsh Cave. If you don't want to go back to the Marsh Cave, it's completely optional. You don't have to go back here. But it is kind of rewarding to go back in now that we're more powerful, and just see how much damage we can actually do to these guys. I have it in fast motion for now, but we're just going to wreck these enemies. Remember that if you fight those scum enemies, not the mucks, the scum are the ones that you need to use your magic on. A whole team of werewolves, that could definitely get you poisoned, so you'll want to use some more powerful magic if you see those guys. And we just want to make our way over to the right. We have a lot more magic at our disposal now, so enemies like the scums are just not as big of a deal. And here we go. We didn't hit this room before, although we didn't need a key to get in it. It just doesn't have a great treasure chest that was worth digging deeper into the Marsh Cave to get. For 295 gold, it was probably better to avoid the first time. It's crazy how just a little bit of better equipment makes things so much easier down here, but these arachnids and spiders definitely not a problem anymore. We'll take care of them quite quickly. With those guys wrapped up, we want to make our way to the lower right corner where we're going to find our first locked door. As we head down there, we'll probably, yep, here's another battle. And it's just the red bone, bones, and crawl battle that we've fought a number of times before. Remember, we want to take out the crawl first, but then prioritize that red bone because the regular bones, they just can't do a lot to hurt you. And in here there's a treasure, and this is a guarded space with more of those wizards. Remember, you can never run from wizards. And we want to use lit magic against them. Lit 2 will really soften these guys up, and a few shots of it should easily take them down. Alright, here it comes, lit 2. And that wizard's dead, and that one's almost dead. We're just going to do an all-out attack on him, and he should go down very fast. He probably has less than 10 hit points left. And there it is. With the wizards defeated, we can open our treasure chest and get our spoils, and this has over 1,000 gold in it. So that's pretty good. We'll use some of our heal potions to make sure that we're at high health. You definitely don't want to be ambushed by some enemies and have very low health characters. That would be bad. Also, don't step on that guarded space in front of the treasure chest again, unless you feel like fighting those wizards multiple times. A couple of those muck enemies are not a problem, and we can head over here and grab this treasure that we didn't pick up last time that only has 385 gold pieces in it, but we might as well get it. One big magic spell will take out these scums, but they did get us with some poison, so we may need to pick up a few more pure potions soon. They're only 75 gold pieces each, so it's not really a big deal anymore. Make your way down to the bottom where we'll find 2 more of those locked doors. This one over here has a pretty decent treasure chest in it, and there is a guarded square right in front of us, but this is not it. So this is just that same battle with the red bone and the bones and the crawl. We take out the crawl first, prioritize the red bone, and that is that. But there's a guarded space on both sides of the treasure, and this one has 5 cobras in front of it. The cobras you might think can poison you because, cobra's a very poisonous snake, but that is not how these guys work. Nope. Cobras actually have a higher than normal critical hit rate, and that's the only thing that's impressive about them. 5 is a lot of cobras to have to fight, so you'll certainly want to use at least one of your Fire 2 spells to manage them, but it shouldn't take too much beyond that. Once these guys are defeated, we'll finally be able to get our treasure chest, And inside there's a silver sword, which we know we can sell for a pretty penny. They cost 4,000 gold to buy, so we'll be able to sell that for 50% of its value. So 2,000 gold is quite a good haul for a single treasure chest. No spiders this time, but Spider was one of the easier enemies in that set. And we're going to need to take the poison off of Vito this time. Vito does not like to be poisoned, that is not his style. Rearrange the party a bit, get everybody back in their spot. And we're going to enter this room on the right side, and if you go to the bottom, you won't have to fight any guards to get this treasure, which we can't hold right now. You can only hold 16 pieces of armor and 16 weapons, so we're going to have to throw away something to be able to pick this up. We'll get rid of this wooden helmet that nobody's wearing, and it's not a very big deal right now, but later in the game, it could actually become a problem to manage our inventory for armor. Never for weapons, though. We always have plenty of slots for weapons. Now, a silver bracelet? That is something really good. It adds 15 absorb. That's 11 more than the copper bracelet we had before, so our black mage is very happy to be equipped with that. We got a lot of junk to sell off here. Unfortunately, that dragon sword only deals 19 damage, and silver swords deal 23. That's 4 more, so the advantage against fighting dragons does not seem worth it. We're going to sell that sucker for 4,000 gold. Yeah, that's a nice haul. We'll come down here and sell off a few things at the armor store. And now we can afford some more magic and items. Excellent. Whenever you're buying level 4 magic for your red mage, remember this: you do not want to buy the pure spell. For the 4,000 gold it would cost to buy the pure magic, you could buy 53 pure potions. Pure potions only cost 75 gold. They're so cheap that some shop owners accept Shiba Inu coins when you buy them. And it probably helps them avoid paying their Final Fantasy taxes, which you know that they like. You don't want to waste one of your spell slots on a spell that can easily be replaced with an inexpensive item. So just make sure that you have Fast and Ice 2 on your red mage, and don't worry about getting any level 4 white magic right now. Back in Provoca, we can get the rest of our level 2 spells, since we have a good bit of money for that now. For our black mage, we can pick up Dark and Slow, since Temper actually doesn't do anything. These kind of status effect spells we probably won't ever use, but it is nice that they affect all enemies. The Dark spell will reduce the enemy's hit rate, which actually could be pretty decent, and Slow will stop them from doing multiple hits. So those could be things that you might want to do, but chances are you'll end up spending most of your level 2 spells on Ice. And on the white magic side, we can use A-Lit and Invis. A-Lit can protect the party from lightning attacks, and Invis will protect the party from physical attacks, which is kinda nice, but once again, we'll probably mostly just use our ice magic, but it is nice to have options now and then. With the last of those spells in our possession, it's time to get back into our ship and set sail for new seas. But first, we can stop at Canaria along the way and use their very inexpensive inn. I mean, it's the cheapest inn in the game, and it does the same thing as every other inn, so why not use it since it's on the way? Once we're done in Canaria, we'll go back into our ship, and we want to sail over to the left. That TNT that we gave the dwarves opened up a channel right to the south of where the dwarf cave is, and that's it right there. And once we pass through, we've finally made it to some new seas. There's one odd eye that we'll quickly take care of here. I mean, this guy only has 10 HP, so yeah, it doesn't take very much to fix his breakfast. And with that, we've done it. We've made it to Chapter 3, The Rotting Earth. We finally reached the city of Melmond, not to be confused with Melmac, where Alpha's from, although I wouldn't want to leave a cat unattended in either location. It seems like some kind of vampire attacked this place and destroyed their clinic, which is quite obnoxious if any of your characters die while adventuring in this area. The people tell us we need to revive the Orb of Earth, and this guy... I'm a farmer! Yeah, that guy. Well, we need to pass through some kind of Titan's tunnel, so that seems important. And this guy knows how to make ships float, but I hate to break it to you, man, that's what ships do. They float. You put them in water and they sink, that's not a very good ship. You know how I said that the intelligence stat has no value in this game? Well, the effects of that are really starting to manifest here in this town. If we head up here above the weapon shop, we can talk to a few other interesting characters. This guy says that the Titan who lives in the Titan Tunnel eats rubies, which I suppose is better than diamonds. And that guy is Dr. Un, who is somebody that we'll need to talk to later. This guy tells us where the Earth Cave is, and that's the next dungeon that we'll have to go to. But before we head over there, let's stop into this armor shop and sell a few things that we don't need. There's also some really good stuff to buy, like another one of those silver bracelets, which we can give to our black belt. And unfortunately, we don't have enough money to buy the steel armor, but whenever we do, we're definitely going to want to come back here to get it. The steel armor offers a 34 absorb, and is one of the best pieces of armor your fighter will be able to wear in this chapter. Before we leave, we can talk to this guy, who thinks that it's the vampire that's stealing the power of the Earth. But he's wrong. It's actually Lich, the Earth Fiend. Of course, it sounds like we need to go to the Earth Cave, but we have a ship and we can go wherever we want. So we actually should head down here to a place called Crescent Lake. Now, the Crescent Lake area is designed for slightly higher level characters, but we were fighting enemies like this troll back when we were level 5, so we're going to have no problem fighting them now. Recall that trolls are weak against fire, and since there's only one troll here, we'll just use our basic fire magic. But we are getting close to another town where we can use the inn, so we can feel free to use whatever powerful magic we want. We'll make our way into this forest, and in here we'll face 2 trolls this time. So we'll actually use some slightly more powerful magic and let loose fire level 2. This time it deals 106 and 79 damage, which should make it pretty easy for us to finish off these monsters. We're going to have to go all out attack to finish off this last troll, but he couldn't possibly have very many hit points left, so it won't take much. Take that, troll. And now we're heading back to the Crescent Lake area. We want to go down around the lake and then head to the left. And we're going to come back up to be able to get into the city. But first we need to fight this giant, and we have a preemptive strike on our side, which is nice. It shouldn't take much to defeat one giant at this point. Alright, 72 damage from the ice magic, a nice 46 damage from our black belt, and he's terminated. Now we can continue our journey up to the Crescent Lake town and pop on in. Whenever we defeat the Fiend of Earth, we're going to be able to come back here to Crescent Lake to get a canoe, which will open up new areas for us. But for now, we just want to stop over in the armor shop and take a look at what they have. You remember all those silver items that we've been finding that are quite good? Well, this is probably where they came from. You can buy almost any kind of silver item you would want here in Crescent Lake. The silver shield, the silver helmet, and the silver gauntlet are all good items for us to buy here, but don't forget about the buckler. The buckler is a shield that our red mage can actually use, and it's one of the few shields that he can actually equip, so it's something that we should definitely pick up. Purchase whatever silver stuff you can afford, and whenever you're done, don't forget that we need to equip all this stuff, so we'll do that from the menu. With all this new silver equipment, we're going to be quite powerful, so let's take a look at our status. UCAN has 38 and 38, 31 and 22 absorb on our red mage. It looks like our black belt now has 32 hit percent, so he's going to be doing 4 hits per attack. So yeah, our team is looking pretty good, and our black belt is actually about to level up again, which will make him even more powerful. It costs 200 gold to use the inn here, and we're probably going to need it after all those battles outside. So make sure to replenish your health, and whenever you have everything you need from the Crescent Lake, make your way back to the ship. It seems that we've run into another giant, so let's take him down with our ice magic and attacks. And we'll actually get to try out some of this new silver stuff if he does any attacks on us. Let's see how it works out. Well, Vito didn't take very much damage there. And well, that's the end of the giant, so I guess experiment over. And there it is, Beat just reached level 11. He's a little bit behind because he was killed during that Astos fight, but he'll catch up pretty quickly. This big screen full of monsters is the most common battle here in the Crescent Lake area. Scorpions are poisonous, and cobras are not, as we already know, but I guess at least they got 1 out of 2 correct. The scorpions are a higher priority target to defeat because of their poison status, but our Fire 2 or Ice 2 magics don't really discriminate. It looks like the poison already got to Beat, so we are going to have to fix him up after this fight. But with 2 people casting Fire 2, these monsters are not likely to survive a single round of combat. We'll use a Pure Potion. If you ever get low on Pure Potions, make sure to buy more. And we also need to rearrange our party because for whatever reason, they decide to put Beat down at the bottom when he gets poisoned. And then we'll just make our way back to our ship. You know what to do here. We're going to speed through this battle this time. Before we go back to Melmond, we need to take a quick stop back over at Elfland because we don't have any soft potions, and there are enemies in the next area that can turn our party members to stone. And that is quite a disaster if we don't have any soft potions. If someone is turned to stone and you don't have a soft potion, it's essentially like they're dead. You just have to carry around a statue of them until you get back to town, and if all of your characters are dead or stoned, that's game over. Over here in Elfland, we can buy the solution. They're kind of expensive at 800 gold pieces a piece, but we have the money and we should definitely pick up at least a few so we don't have to deal with anybody being turned to stone. Just grab a couple soft potions, and it's very convenient that we can reach Elfland from this port at the bottom instead of having to go all the way back inside so we can use the same port that we used in the past to get to Elfland. Once we have at least a few soft potions, we should probably stay at the inn, and then we can jump back into our ship and set sail for Melmond. It's time to do something about that vampire. So we'll head down here across the ocean, sing a few sea shanties, take care of this single Kaizoku, beat up on this poor shark, and we're back to Melmond. Here we can use the inn again so that we can save the game. And remember, there is no item store or clinic in Melmond, so if you needed any supplies, you should have bought them in Elfland. We have a bit of a walk ahead, and the fact that this area is all marshland is because of the rotting earth. Over here, we meet our good old friend the ogre, but he has a new friend with him, the hyena. Interesting. Well, it's not that interesting. Hyenas are not that difficult to defeat, I would probably prioritize taking out the hyenas, but either of these enemies should be pretty easy at this point in the game. We don't want to use up our magic because we're going to need it whenever we get inside the Earth Cave, which is our next destination. Those guys are easily defeated, and we'll make our way down south to the bottom of this area, where we'll find a strange triangular peninsula. Before that though, we have the chance to strike first against these undead. Ghouls and Geists can both stun your party members, and normally I would say that we should immediately use Fire 2 on these guys, but we're trying to conserve our magic points before we get into the dungeon here, and we get a preemptive strike, so we should be able to handle just a handful of these guys once 4 of them are knocked out. That way we can conserve a bit of our magic. Remember that the ghouls are going to be the easier ones to defeat, so you may want to take those out first. Either of them can stun your guys, so the fewer enemies that are on the board, the better. Looks like 2 of our melee characters got stunned already, so that's a little bit problematic. We should maybe consider using some magic soon, but I think the red mage alone should be able to finish this battle. Oh, easily now. Okay, hopefully the red mage won't get stunned in this round. If he does, we'll have to use another fire spell. Oh, that was bad. Yep, there it is. We're going to have to use another fire spell. And hopefully that'll work. If it doesn't though, it looks like we've got the fighter back online. Well, it doesn't matter. That fire spell took out that last Geist, and we survived that battle. Even though we had that preemptive strike, we maybe should have just used Fire 2 and got rid of those guys very fast. Before we can go into the Earth Cave, it looks like we have to take care of a few more ogres. 3 this time though, so they're even more numerous than before. I'm going to use a cabin to save the game here, but if you're doing better, you may only need a few tents. But you certainly want to save, because it's time to take on the challenges of the Earth Cave. The first thing that we want to do when we get into the Earth Cave is head right, and it looks like we've run into some cobras. We fought these when they were much more difficult and paired with scorpions, so it should be very easy for us to take care of a small group of just 5. Once these guys are cleared, we're going to head to the stairway on the right side. We will have to enter the Earth Cave multiple times, so we don't have to get all the treasure on our first run. We do have to make it all the way to floor 3, and then we have to go all the way back to the bottom again, so we want to be a little bit conservative with our magic spells. We do want to save at least a couple fire magic spells for the boss, and when I say fire magic spells, I'm talking about the good ones, like Fire 2. But beyond that, we should only use magic whenever we actually need it. Here on the second floor, there are slightly more difficult enemies, and there are some very easy treasures to access over on the right side, so we might as well run over there and grab them. Have you ever fought green ogres and regular ogres before? Yeah, I know that we have. We have no problem with fighting those guys. And we've also fought gargoyles before, but never 6. 6 is quite a few gargoyles. Recall that these guys get multiple hits. And when there's this many gargoyles, it may very well be worthwhile to just let it rip with a decent magic spell. That should at least soften them up so that your melee attackers can finish them off. Looks like Yukan took out that one, and now there's only 2 left, so these 2 should not be a problem. We just don't want any big attacks to get through to our people at the bottom of the party. A huge hit could take a lot of heal potions to fix up game. And those guys are now defeated, and there's that treasure room that I was talking about before. Bats all seem to say the same thing. Key, key. I guess that's why they're called keys in The Legend of Zelda. Up here we found the Coral Sword, and sadly the Coral Sword is still not as good as the Silver Sword. It has a pretty good critical hit rate, so that's nice, and it's good against aquatic monsters. Cool. But yeah, we're not going to get a lot of mileage out of the Coral Sword, considering that we have Silver Swords, and they just deal 4 more damage. It's arguable that the programmers should maybe have not allowed us to get the Silver Sword so early in the game, because they do invalidate a lot of the choices that we can make, but we're going to take advantage of the fact that they exist. Silver Swords are the best, and that's what we're going to use. Floor B3 is the one that we came for, and look, it's our old friend, the Wizards. You still can't run away from them, and they still don't cast any magic. You probably still want to use a little bit of magic of your own if you reach a group of them that's very large, so if you see 4 wizards, it's a good time to throw out a lit 2. But when there's only 2 wizards, that's not that big of a deal. You should be able to take these guys out pretty easily now. I mean, we were fighting these guys back in the Marsh Cave. This is the Earth Cave now, dudes. We're a lot more powerful now. And we're just gonna stay along the path here. There's a few treasures that we should pick up in this first run, and they're mostly money, and they're mostly ones that are easy to grab. Up here we can get 3,400 gold, which is nice, and you want to avoid this space in front of the treasure chest, unless you want to fight this earth monster, which is almost a boss. This guy is weak to fire magic, but he has 288 hit points, and this guy can lay down a beating, so you should definitely be careful about fighting this guy. This first run that we're making into the Earth Cave is really more about survival than anything, so if you want to mess around and fight against Earth Guardians, you should probably do that in a later run, and not do it in this one. We remember these guys from the Northwest Castle, and you remember that they can stun your party, so we need to take them seriously and use some powerful magic. We don't need to have both of our casters use powerful magic. We probably won't all get stunned against these guys now that we're at slightly higher levels, but we want to use at least one Fire 2. That'll make it a lot easier to finish them off in 2 rounds. Now that there's only one image left, it's time for an all-out attack. Yeah, nice work, Beat. Getting those 4 hits. You can see how powerful the black belt can become, and it's really just the beginning. This guy is going to get way more powerful by the end of the game. Now this is a dangerous battle. We need to take these guys very, very seriously. Have both of your casters use Fire 2 if you see this many Spectres and Geists. Spectres are slightly more powerful than Geists and can deal a whole lot of damage. If you unleash your Fire 2 magic on this team of monsters, you should be able to take them out before everybody gets stunned and it becomes a huge issue. Continue to make your way around the top of the dungeon. There's some more treasure that we can get down here, but there's nothing in the upper left corner, so don't worry about that. Here we find some more ogres. Bob Barker used to always say at the end of The Price is Right, have your ogres spayed or neutered. And we're getting low on heal potions, which is a bit concerning because we still have to walk out of here after beating the boss. There's just nothing we can do about that. There's a guarded space in front of this treasure, and it's another one of those earth monsters. It may be okay to fight this one if you want to get the chest, but that other one that we fought before was completely optional and totally avoidable. This guy is weak against fire magic, so we can have our black mage use a level 1 fire spell against him to deal at least a little bit of damage. Fire 2 would actually be very effective against this guy, but we need to save our Fire 2 spells for large groups of dangerous enemies or bosses. We should not be using them on individual enemies like this. And with that, we level up Yukan, Vito, and Game to level 12. This is pretty good. It's nice to gain a level right before the boss, and we also can grab 1,020 gold from that treasure chest. As we make our way along the bottom, we reach the boss's room. It's about time that we challenge the vampire, so make sure that you're healthy before you talk to him. Count Dracula, this guy is not. He's actually a fairly weak boss, but the problem is if any of your characters die after fighting this guy, you still have to walk out of here, so you do need to take him seriously. Get a Fire 2 spell on him though, and this guy will go down so quickly. He only has 156 health, and Fire 2 is likely to do around 100 damage. Once the vampire is out of the way, go behind him and pick up the ruby. The ruby is a key item that we need, and it looks like we can go on from there, but we need another item, so we have to get out of the earth cave first. Wolves. We've definitely fought werewolves and grey wolves before, so we'll just speed through this battle. You may get poisoned fighting those werewolves though, so you'll want to make sure that you have some pure potions available, but that's advice I've been giving out the entire time. Restore the party's order because of course we want to have the fighter at the top of the party, as he will take 50% of the hits up there. And we'll start our descent. This is another one of those dangerous battles, so hopefully you have at least one Fire 2 available for it. You don't want everybody to get stunned. It is not fun waiting around to see if anybody loses that stun. Stupid bat, get out of here. And we're going to fight 5 werewolves this time. That is quite a few werewolves. It's the maximum number that we could have to fight, although there's no grey wolves associated this time. The werewolves can poison you, so you do need to take them somewhat seriously, but at this point in the game, we should be able to handle them just by using melee attacks. As long as we have pure potions available, we don't have to worry about getting poisoned, and these guys don't have very serious attacks. So we'll just clear them out one at a time. The red mage should be able to finish off this guy. And once the werewolves are defeated, Beat finally joins us on level 12. He should be very powerful now. We'll just make our way out of floor B3. And before we go, we get to see our ogre friends yet again. 2 green ogres this time. Alright, that might be one of the more difficult ogre battles we've seen so far. Before we leave, we can head over here and pick up this one lonely treasure chest which has a single tent in it. I'm just picking it up so that you know you don't have to get it. And then we'll make our way back to Melmond, where we can stay at the inn, but if any of your characters died, remember there's no clinic here, and we did use up almost all of our healing potions and pure potions, so we're going to need to go to another village that has an item shop to replenish those. Right now though, we can actually now use level 5 magic on our black mage, so it's time for him to learn Fire 3. Fire 3 is a very powerful spell. It's a lot like Fire 2, it just deals more damage. The red mage can't cast level 5 magic just yet, and we don't have to go back into the earth cave yet, so we'll forego going to the item store for now. This is not going to be a very long trip. We just need to head across this small continent. Make your way across the marshy area and through this small space between the mountains. Here are 3 of those shadow enemies, and we remember that battle from the Marsh Cave. Down here we're going to find a new dungeon, the Titan's Tunnel, but this is a pretty easy one. Here we meet a tiger, and this is the first time we've ever faced one of these. The tiger feels like a fairly generic enemy, so just attack it with your melee attacks and it should go down pretty fast. In the middle of the room here is the Titan, and whenever we talk to him, we'll give him the ruby. Just as that guy in Melmond said, he loves to eat rubies, and once he's fed, he will disappear and allow us through. We need to go to that stairway up at the top, But before we go there, there's a decent number of treasures down here that would like to collect. Before we can get those treasures though, it looks like we have to face a disgusting horde of arachnids. These guys can poison us, but we've been facing them for quite some time, so just unleash some powerful magic on them, and they will not have a chance. We don't need to take it so far as to use something like Fire 3, but Ice 2 will really mess these guys up. So just take out as many of them as you can with your magic, and then use your melee attacks to finish off whichever arachnids still remain. If everybody gets poisoned, I think we still have enough pure potions. I sure hope we do. I definitely don't want to walk the whole way back to Melmond with that poison sound going off. Alright. 2 guys poisoned, but still looking okay. Oh yeah, we have plenty of pures. So 1 and 2, and then we just need to restore the natural order here. So we'll do a quick flipsy doodle, and that should fix things up. There are 4 treasure chests down here, and none of them are super exciting, but we will be able to sell some of these things, like the Great Axe, and we'll also find some money. So, I mean, all told, it's pretty nice. Once you've collected that loot, make your way up to the top, and go down the stairs to Sarda's Cave. Alright, some gray wolves. In the far-flung past, this pack of gray wolves would have caused us serious problems, but now we can defeat them easily. When we emerge from the Titan's Tunnel, we're over on the other side of the Melmond continent. Down here we run into a few ghouls, and ghouls aren't that big of a deal. It's the Geists that are the real dangerous ones. So we'll just use our level 1 fire to take these guys out, and finish off the rest of them with some simple melee attacks. Silver weapons seem to work excellent against ghouls, but they work excellently against everything. And we're back to the game. Head on down to Sarda's Cave. Sarda's Cave has no enemies in it, so that's nice. The only thing we need to do in here is head over to the left and talk to good old Sarda, who gives us the rod. Yeah, that doesn't sound very good. Well, Sarda gives us the rod, and we can use it behind the vampire's room. That's in the Earth Cave. That's where we just were. Well, it would have been nice if he would have given us the rod before we went to the Earth Cave the first time, but there was no way through the Titan Tunnel without that ruby. Back here in Melmond, we can use the inn and save our game. We can use the shops in Melmond to sell off some stuff that we don't need, like that coral sword that's not as good as the silver sword, or the great axe that's not as good as the silver sword, or pretty much everything is just not as good as the silver sword. That's just how things work. But Melmond is not a full-featured city, and before we can go back to the Earth Cave, we need to go somewhere that has an item shop. So let's head back to good old Canaria. It's nice to be able to shop here. And this time I recommend that we pick up 99 potions. It takes a long time to buy 99 potions. We'll be like, hey man, can we purchase 99 heal potions please? And the shopkeeper's like, oh no, you're not making me do math in my store. That is not how we do things around here, son. So it takes about a good 5 minutes to buy 99 potions. If you have a turbo controller, I recommend that you use it. Once you have them all though, head on back to Melmond, where we can use the inn to save the game, and before we go, make sure to unload any extra armor that you have, because we are going to want to pick up some treasures while we're in the Earth Cave again. So head on up to the armor shop. We can wave to Dr. Un. Hey, what's up, Dr. Un? We'll see you later. And sell off some of this junk. We won't be needing this extra silver helmet, so we'll get rid of that. And then we can make our way back to the Earth Cave. But we're not going to stop at basement 3 this time. Oh no. We're gonna go all the way to the bottom this time. Make sure to save. You definitely want to use at least a tent before you go in here this time. If we make our way up to the top here, we can find a treasure chest that has a bunch of gold in it. It's 1,975 gold, which is a decent amount. We're definitely not baller rich yet, so we're going to need that money, and we might as well head up here and grab whatever gold we can get. Looks like we need to take care of some more of these arachnids before we can get the gold, but that's alright. Only one of our guys got poisoned that time, and we did pick up a few more pure potions over in Conaria, so we shouldn't have any problem with poisonings. Don't forget, whenever somebody gets poisoned, you'll probably have to readjust your party order. Head over here and we'll grab that loot, and then we'll make our way back out. At this point, we can actually go back to the stairway in the center of the room, leave the Earth Cave and use like a tent or a cabin to save the game, and also heal up any of our party members. Mummies can put your people to sleep, and sleep is fairly similar to paralysis in that whenever your character is asleep, they won't be able to participate in battle. There's only 2 mummies here, and they're undead, so we shouldn't have too much trouble taking them out, and when there's only 2, I would just use melee attacks on them, but if you ever get the full 5, consider using your fire spells. Out here, we can use an item to save the game, and we're doing pretty well, so we'll use a tent this time. Then we can head back in, and this time we're going to get the treasure that's down at the bottom. You want to go slightly to the right and then start heading downward. Bulls are what zombies look like before they die and get reanimated. So these are a slightly lesser form, and although they have less hit points, they may actually be a bit more difficult to defeat than the zombies because they don't have the weakness to fire magic that those guys did. Luckily here on the first floor of the Earth Cave, we won't have to fight more than 1 or 2 zombies at a time, and these guys only have 164 hit points, so dealing with 2 of them is not really that big of a deal for this team. Once those guys are defeated, make your way down and cut over to the right to go to this first treasure room. If you don't want to hit the guarded square, follow my lead. You want to stay at the bottom. If you go to the space between the 2 treasure chests at the top, you will have to face a battle up there, so you probably want to avoid that spot. Over here, it looks like there's some ogres. Would you believe that there's ogres in here? I had no idea. What? Ogres? What's an ogre? Have you ever seen ogres before? Okay. Alright, now that we're done with that, we'll make our way all the way over to the left here. That first one's a dead end. And just come down to the bottom where we'll find yet another treasure room. You want to follow my lead again, and this is actually not a guarded space. We just got a random battle here, and it's a bunch of asps. It's the most possible asps that we can have to fight. So this is kind of a dangerous one, and we probably should use a bit of magic here. But I think we can actually handle these guys with our melee attacks, so let's see how we fare. We've been fighting asps for a long time, and they only have 56 hit points, and we do have a lot of those pure potions, so I think that we're going to be okay if we resist using our magic here. Yeah, we're going to be fine. There's only 4 of them left now. Well, now there's 3. And after that, there's only going to be 2. And now 1. Can you do it, game? Can you finish that guy off? Nope, we're going to need to just do an all-out attack, so hold down the button, and that will take out the final asp. We didn't have to use magic at all, see? Not too difficult. Only 1 guy got poisoned, too. That's pretty lucky. So it cost us 75 gold, and then we got a treasure for 880, and plus we got all the money for defeating those enemies, so yeah, not a bad deal. There is a guarded square right here, though. It's an earth enemy, so you should be careful of this one. If you want to get this treasure chest, you can actually go up to the right instead, but Yeah, there's a guarded square here with an earth enemy. If you want to fight an earth, well, here's where one is, but we do want to try to survive here. Although we can go outside and just use a tent or a cabin after collecting this treasure. So not extremely risky this time. The earths look intimidating, but they're not actually that bad. And this time we actually leveled up to level 13. Nice! Of course, Beat is still level 12, but he should join us fairly soon at level 13. And for our trouble, we get one whole heal potion. Wow, thanks. So good, a heal potion. Alright, 3 cobras. Took care of those guys. And we're just going to make our way back up to the center where the stairs are. Once we get back to the stairs, we can leave and go outside and use a tent or a cabin or even a house if we used a lot of magic. We have a couple houses that we found in treasure chests, so we're going to save at least 1 or 2 of those for the end game, but we can always buy more if we need them. Houses are kind of expensive though, so we don't have a ton of money for them right now, but we will have a lot of money in the late game. One other thing I want to show you over here on floor B1 is there is a massive set of guarded spaces on the far left side. Every space over here in this corridor is a guarded space that will make you fight some amount of giants and possibly iguanas. So unless you want to get trapped over there and have to keep fighting giants to get out, you probably want to avoid this area. The strategy guide recommends this as a place where you could level up, and yeah, I suppose you could level up over here, but it would probably be more effective to level up in the secret level up zone, where you'd actually fight more dangerous monsters. Yeah, so I don't think the Hall of Giants is really the best place for level ups, but it is worth noting. Now that we've collected all of that treasure on the first floor, it's time to go down to the bottom and take on Lich, the Fiend of the Earth. We're going to speed up a few things here, and we've already been on these floors before, but we will pause to take care of these gargoyles. It looks like we actually have Game and Beat out of order right now, but that's okay. They're going to take the same amount of hits down there at the bottom of the screen. So we can attack a few more of these gargoyles. And the gargoyles are just not as difficult as they used to be, but you do need to be careful. There could potentially be 8 of them that show up. And if you do have to fight 8 gargoyles, you want to make sure to use magic. With only 4 gargoyles though, we shouldn't have a lot of problem defeating these guys just by using the fight command. So we'll give them a proper beatdown, and when they're beaten, well, it seems that our black belt has risen to level 13. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with now. So we're just going to speed through a few more things. We've definitely been to floor B2 before, but this time we're going to head down in the middle. There's a few treasures we can pick up at the bottom. Nothing super great or anything, but we might as well stop in here. There is a guarded space right in front of the door, so if you want the treasures in here, you cannot avoid this earth monster, and we're going to have to fight this guy again on the way out, so that's kind of obnoxious. We don't want to waste a lot of our magic, and we should be able to take him out now with our melee attacks, no problem. Looks like we should use some of our heal potions though. We didn't buy 99 heal potions for nothing, so we'll put a few of those to use. We can walk straight up here and we'll find some gold and a wooden shield. Yay! The real prize is the 5,000 gold at the top. And as we head out, we can take on this earth one more time. We know what to do here. An all-out attack should take care of this guy with ease. It'll probably take 2 rounds of combat. We may be able to get him in the first round if we get particularly lucky. Fight, 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 fight. If this is your first time at Fight Club, you have to fight. And once that guy is gone, well, let's speed things up again. There was more gargoyles this time, so we did need to use a little bit of magic on them. 3 asps, no problem at all. Those guys will go down fast to our melee attacks. And we're just going to cut through here. Werewolves, no problem. They are a poison threat, of course, but we took them out very quickly that time and didn't have to worry about it. Oh, 9 undead. Both casters should use fire too when you see 9 undead. And we're going to stop over here where we can find a single heal potion. Feel free to skip that one if you want. You probably don't need a single heal potion, but if you insist on getting all the treasures in the game, as I said in the front of the video we were going to do, well, that's one you'll have to pick up, I guess. Make your way over to the left. Another set of undead. That's going to take out a lot of our magic, but I think we should have enough. 2 more wizards, can't run away. And our favorite ogre battle. And once we get past these ogres, we're right over in that area where we need to use the rod that Sarda gave us. Here is the stone slab that blocks our way. We sense something evil. With the rod used, the plate shatters, revealing a stairway. There's something evil down here, alright. It's the Fiend of Earth. You may think the Fiend of Earth would be some kind of rocky golem monster, but no, it's actually a strange skeleton wizard. Yeah, very creative there, Square. We're going to make our way to the top of this room where we can find even more treasures. Oh yeah, we love the treasures. We gotta get the precious. So we're going to make our way up here to the treasure room. A few healing potions will keep our health high. We definitely don't want to get ambushed by some monsters and end up dead because we didn't heal ourselves between battles. And of course, there's some dangerous spots in this room, so follow my lead. We can actually walk between those 2 chests, and we'll be able to grab some kind of junk items up there, so nothing too exciting. But if we head over here, well, there's a guarded space right here with a sphinx, but it is avoidable. So what we could have done instead is walk down to the bottom and looped around. The sphinx isn't that difficult to defeat though, but he's one more battle that we just didn't have to fight. We will get a nice amount of gold for fighting him though. So there's no guarded space right there, and if we just would have walked all the way to the bottom, you can actually go down and around and collect both of those treasures from the side. Yeah, you don't have to fight that sphinx at all. Once we've looted that treasure room, we're going to make our way back this way. And, well, we fought this battle before. Gray imps. At this point in the game, come on now. We are definitely giving our pure potions a workout up here. And as usual, we have to remember to reorder the party, because party order matters just so much. We'll finally fix that little thing at the bottom, so that everybody's in their right spot, at least for now. Eventually, Beat will be good enough to take over the second slot. Couple more wizards, take those guys out. We can use some more heal potions. We still have 85, so we're doing quite well on potions this time. We're going to cut across the middle here. We want to make our way to the lower left corner, but to get there we need to go all the way to the left first. Now, cockatrice, these are very dangerous enemies. Use your ice or your lit magic against these guys. They can turn you to stone, and this is why we brought those soft potions, just in case we ran into these guys. A little bit of ice too will thin their ranks, and well, you see, that's what happens. If we didn't have a soft potion, we'd be carrying around a statue for the rest of this run, and that would be a huge problem for facing the boss. A character that's turned to stone is essentially dead. so you need to revive them by using a soft potion immediately. Now that the proper order is restored, we're going to keep cutting across the middle here, and once we get to the far left, then we'll go all the way down the left side, where we're going to find yet another treasure room. So just head down here, pop into the door, and we want to be careful here. There's a cabin, that's pretty good, and we want to stay down here on the bottom and then go up this row where we'll have access to both chests. There's a silver shield here and 1250 gold. Not too bad. Now that we've gotten the last chests on floor B4, it's time to go up to the upper left corner, and that's where we'll find the stairway that will take us to floor B5. And floor B5 is the final floor of the Earth Cave. It's about time we put a stop to this rotting earth nonsense. Floor 5 is not that large, and there are no treasures on this floor, so we just need to make our way over to the boss in the most efficient path possible. We fought both of these guys before. The troll is probably the more dangerous enemy here, but neither of these guys are actually that threatening. We should be able to finish this guy off with an all-out attack. Go, go, go. Alright, it's a pretty strong hit on Vito. I wouldn't punch Vito like that if I were that bull. I always figured that the different characters came from different cities and different backgrounds, all bearing their own different orb. Can probably came from Melmond, grew up a farmer, and bears the Earth Orb. Beat grew up in Provoca, probably grew up around pirates and learned the martial arts from them, and he carries the Water Orb. Game probably came from Eternia. He looks like he's probably Orko's cousin, and I assume he has the Wind Orb. But Vito's probably from the Bronx. I mean, that guy got the Fire Orb, and he probably got it on sale because it fell off the back of a truck. I would not mess with Vito. That guy is gangster. And with that, we've reached the boss. The Fiend's Ball cracks open, an ominous cloud rises, and an evil shape congeals. It is Lich, the Fiend of Earth. You know this is a serious boss because you don't even have to target him with your attacks. The game already knows who you want to punch. In the first round, you want to have your casters used fast on your two melee attackers. But beyond that, the thing that's really going to get the job done here is fire magic. Fire magic just wrecks this guy, and we've been saving a little spell called Fire 3 for this guy. That's how we're going to take him out. So in the second round of combat, everybody has fast already on them, so they can do some beatdowns, and your casters are going to cast Fire 2 and Fire 3, and that should probably finish off Lich, and finally fix the rotting earth. We've done it. We've defeated the first fiend. Now all we need to do is go to the back of the room and release the shadow from the orb. And that's the end of Chapter 3, and it's also the end of Part 1 of this video. Don't miss Part 2 for the epic conclusion, where we'll reveal our high-level attack strategy, we'll defeat the other 3 fiends, we'll tangle with War Mech, and we'll finally put a stop to the chaos that is plaguing this world. Don't miss it.